나와 신나 북번께 또 신나 샤바와키 신나무 기그라니 짜이 샤바기라니 짜이무 기그라니 루아이디
Yep, that is Robbie's girlfriend, and she is not happy with him. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Radowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com, and we will be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developing right now here on the interwebs. As of course, there is never a shortage of things to talk about, as it looks like there is some potential YouTube suppression of the Joe Rogan, Donald Trump podcast, as Kamala Harris and the establishment looks like they are getting very desperate. Trump is talking about eliminating the income tax as a Philadelphia DA is now going after Elon Musk. There's a ballot box on fire in Washington state, and we're also going to be discussing if Florida is the new Atlantis. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're going to be discussing that all here for the next 2 hours. So please share this broadcast with your friends and family members. We are nothing without you guys getting the word out there to your friends and family members. And it's really one of the only ways that within the last 20 years that my message has still been able to get out there to the general public. So I am definitely very appreciative of you sharing these broadcasts. And that's why we try to give back as much as we can. And we do that through LukeUnfiltered.com, where we host meetups, nature hikes. I think soon we're going to be doing like a beach cleanup. We're going to be doing a bunch of really cool stuff all through LukeUnfiltered.com, which is also the platform that when you join, you get the ability to join the show and join the conversation, as we will be going to callers in about an hour and a half from now. So far, we don't have a caller. That caller could be you. All you have to do is sign up to LukeUnfiltered.com. When you do, you go into the Telegram group and you tell me you want to call in, and then we just go right there to you. First-time callers also get a free supplement from wearechange.shop. We are going to be doing everything in our power to read any and all super chats, but of course we will be prioritizing the Streamlabs chats that of course will be going through mysuperchat.com. Joining us for today's conversation is actually someone who was recommended to us through one of our members' meetups. We recently did a meetup here in Miami, and they're like, dude, you got to get Conor on. You got to get Dr. Longo on. So we did. Dr. Longo, who are you, and how would you introduce yourself?
Howdy. Thanks for having me, Luke. I run the Old World Florida YouTube channel, and we pretty much cover the hidden history of Florida and the Old World, we call it. So everything esoteric, mystical, even ghost stories, you know, hauntings, astrology, everything mystical about Florida. And a lot of people don't know the America started in Florida, as we know it. So the United States, Florida's the birthplace of the United States. Most people overlook that. We know about Jamestown, etc., but it's all really kicked off in Florida. So people don't know that. Our president, hopeful presidents in Florida, and it's all surprisingly relevant.
I call Florida the Alamo state. It's the last kind of bastion of freedom, in my opinion. Yeah. And if the election doesn't go the way that a lot of people expect it to be, I think that's going to be more truer than ever. But there's a lot of lore, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of mystery surrounding Florida. So we're going to definitely discuss that after discussing all the latest, craziest events that are happening here. So it's great to have you. Thank you so much for coming on. Martha Bueno, also in the house. Mucho bueno, kaki.
Thanks, Luke. I love being here. And as the resident long-term Floridian, I am so excited for this show. I'm so excited to hear about my Florida. So thanks for having me as usual. And yeah, it's going to be awesome.
I am super excited. Dr. Longo, I mean, first of all, Martha, I mean, you ran for office using OF. I mean, come on, we can't forget about that. But the doctor's here. He's got the remedy. He knows what's going on in Florida. I'm super thrilled, looking forward to your calls. And I got the best person next to me, Steph.
Hey everyone, this is Steph. We are Change, ready to push the button. Super excited. We already had such a great conversation, and I'm excited to hear more from Conor. Super interesting. I'm from Florida too, so let's get into it.
Steph has volunteered to dominate and lead the conversation, right, Steph?
As always.
Yes, so we're super excited about that, as of course, there's a lot of different crazy things happening in our political discourse right now, but I think one of the biggest things that has kind of shifted the larger political landscape was this kind of juggernaut 3-hour-long podcast episode between Joe Rogan and Donald Trump that was released Friday night. I don't know why they decided to release it on a Friday night. Optimally, I was like, they should release it on a Monday during the day to get all the news talking about it, to get everyone kind of, galvanized behind the larger messaging. But Joe Rogan just didn't wait. The video was released and then made private and then released again because they needed to, of course, coordinate the release on Spotify. But regardless of that, the interview has garnered over 35 million views in the making of this video. And now there are individuals that are claiming that there's some kind of underhanded suppression going on here, as Elon Musk just retweeted Nico Rec, who did a video showing how he was on his phone on the YouTube app, and he typed in Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan, Donald Trump interview, and it was nowhere to be found except for the kind of clips, except for the kind of larger reactions here, as a lot of people are saying, hey, this is kind of potential foul play here, as this is one of the biggest interviews of the political season, and you can't find it when you search for it on YouTube. What's going on here? Is this just an algorithm glitch, or is there something a little bit more sinister happening here? As we know, Google really wasn't happy after 2016, as we saw some of their employees literally crying when they found out that Donald Trump won the presidential election. It definitely does seem like they were a little bit more kind of invested and involved in 2020. Are they involved this year? What do you guys think?
They're always involved, Luke. I mean, come on. They of course they're going to be involved, but we're seeing people, I think, moderating their behavior. I mean, like Jeff Bezos said that his publication was not going to endorse Kamala. So I think that they're realizing that they maybe don't go too hard on this because it might not work out in your favor.
So Kamala's campaign has received the most funding from Google. If you look at a chart that I'm looking at that I've reposted on my Twitter, Google is the #1 funding. Then comes Microsoft for Kamala Harris. So I'm not really surprised. Also, I don't know if you guys saw, but the combination of all the views on every single podcast that Kamala or interview that Kamala has done is still lesser than that one Joe Rogan podcast.
The censorship is real. I did try it earlier on my phone. It is because I did try the other day and it worked, and it didn't work today. So there's some people at Google that are manipulating the algorithms, that are changing it for. There's some dude who their friend told them about the interview, and they go to look it up, and then they have to actually go and type and click on the Joe Rogan page, and then it comes up. But you can't just.
And then you got to go on videos.
Yes,
and then you got to find it through videos, and then you got to go.
Just watch it on Spotify,
YouTube,
guys. Just watch it on Spotify.
Even YouTube, I went straight to YouTube, and it didn't show up as like the first thing. I still have to find it. I haven't found it yet.
But it's bigger than 35 million views. Call Her Daddy got around 700,000 views, which was a podcast that the corporate media was cheerleading her for doing. They're like, she did a podcast with Call Her Daddy. This is great. This is so awesome.
Softball questions.
700,000 views. Rogan here again. Let's be fair. Rogan didn't really hold his feet to the fire. It wasn't contentious. Wasn't kind of aggressive. He's not usually aggressive and contentious at all either. So I found interesting comments from Rogan that he made specifically about potentially Kamala joining him, because he came out and said Kamala didn't say yes, but she also didn't say no. So it looks like they're still in negotiation.
They're pretty desperate. She may still do it. I mean, I think intuitively,
should.
I was thinking that there's a good chance she still may do it. They have nothing to lose. She's behind in the polls. She's behind on all the betting markets. She has nothing to lose by doing it. I mean, he's already kind of admitted he won't throw any hardball questions at her. He's just like, let's have a conversation.
It's official that she's not going to do it.
How do you know that she...
I'm pretty sure
it's
that
not
was
official.
already...
No. We saw rumors online, because we got to be careful, because people tweet stuff all the time like Kamala Harris officially canceled. Okay, where's the source on that?
I thought it was the Daily Mail.
Let's actually get official kind of... Yeah, but the Daily Mail also spreads a lot of fake news sometimes too. According to Joe Rogan, the next podcast he did a UFC commentary podcast, watching the UFC this past Saturday. Great UFC. Awesome fights. Crazy fights with Kazmat literally ripping someone's chin off. Absolutely wild fights.
Missed that.
Yeah, it was an absolutely incredible fight to watch, as well as the Max Holloway fight, which was absolutely incredible. Again, I'm straying away here from the topic of discussion here, but Joe Rogan specifically on that podcast said, Kamala didn't say yes, she didn't say no. And
that's true.
So that's the official wording here.
He said he wanted her. He said he kind of like slowed Trump down.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
If that side criticizes his podcast too much, she really can't go on it, can she? If that's the bastion of
Well, I think
the
with all the
alt-right
people
and-
criticizing it, and she's seen all the comments, you can never do this. You wouldn't be able to last 3 hours. Trump saying that. I think maybe their team's like, oh, let's prove everyone wrong. I mean, because at this point they have nothing to lose. I actually kind of think that she may still do it. I have a weird feeling about it.
He made a point to remain neutral.
Yeah.
Did
And I
you-
hope she does it.
I'm surprised Trump did 3 hours, though, because Rogan also made a comment saying that Trump's team was freaking out because they were 2 hours late to an event. And it does look like, I think, from what we're getting, the kind of assessment here is that Trump said he will do 1 hour. But then he ended up doing 3 hours. And then he ended up literally flying to a swing state and doing a campaign.
Well, he knows how
event
important
right
it is. It's the
afterwards.
biggest podcast in the world. He knows how important it is. The mainstream media is going downhill. We all know that. We all know that they sensationalized. It's all fake. A lot of it's fake. They're editing clips. Joe Rogan's uncensored, just a normal conversation. The media won't show you that side of Trump. I think it was good for Trump and people seeing the real him.
Yeah, it was great.
Can I ask, do you guys know if Joe Rogan does any early release or premium type thing?
I don't think so, no. I think it's
Well-
all Spotify.
Well, it's interesting because when I watched this interview, it was from the pre-released early private link. I don't know how much that must mess up the algorithm, but I know that if you switch a video between private and unprivate,
Yeah, that hurts the algorithm.
that can hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And there was a good couple 100,000 in there before it was officially made public.
Exactly.
So I had a schizo friend who sent me that link immediately.
And they're like, censorship's happening.
Yeah.
And then Joe Rogan was like, no, it's not censorship. It's literally me making the video private so we could upload it to Spotify. Spotify doesn't release their numbers. So we have to understand here, there could be tens of millions of people that have watched it and listened to it on Spotify as well. There's other people that are just copying it and uploading it to Twitter. Some of those videos already have 4 million views just on Twitter alone. So we're talking about something that is reaching a huge portion of Americans that the system absolutely doesn't like. And I think for plausible deniability, I think this is why Joe Rogan's like, yeah, I'll absolutely have Kamala on just to release some of the pressure on him, to kind of create like a release valve situation, because everyone's going to be looking at him. You're shilling for Donald Trump. Like, no, I asked Kamala to be on. She just didn't want to be on. She didn't come on the show. But with her poll numbers being the way that they are, with everything kind of unfolding the way that they are, I still think there's a slight possibility. I think there's like a 15% possibility that Kamala says yes, goes to Joe Rogan, and then does the podcast here. I'm still kind of bewildered why they did it on a Friday night. I'm literally driving home after doing one of my meetups. I do a meetup every Friday where guests of the show literally just kind of come on and we kind of just hang out. I'm like driving back from that meetup and it's like, oh, the Rogan podcast dropped. I'm like, it's like 11 o'clock at night. Everyone's out. Everyone's kind of partying. Everyone's hanging out. This is not the time I want to listen to a 3-hour podcast.
I had to break it up.
Yeah.
I had to break it up. It was a little, I think the reason that they're trying to suppress it is because Trump didn't say anything terrible. If Trump would have said something like ridiculous, it would be everywhere. Look how dumb this man is. Look, he has dementia. Oh my God,
Yep.
he can't possibly run the country. He didn't. In 3 hours, sure, he does that typical weave of his, where he goes off on tangents and blah, 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 blah. But it was surprisingly, I mean, I personally have a hard time with I did everything so fantastic and I'm so great, but it was normal.
They can't find anything bad. They couldn't find anything bad from his rally at MSG yesterday, except that they're showing Tony Hinchcliffe doing a joke. I mean, it's literally they're really having to come out and talk about saying it's a Nazi rally. They're really having to make up all this crazy stuff and try to take advantage of weaker-minded people because it's
that
really
says a
sad
lot about them, though.
of what they're doing. My friend the other day, I'm like, hey man, what are you voting for? He's like, yeah man, Trump's going to take away the Constitution. That's what they're really good at brainwashing people through media.
Josie put out a great tweet that I think I'm going to completely butcher. And she was like, so in order to save democracy, we're going to, militarize the government against political opponents. We're going to do all these things. We're going to, get somebody to run that nobody voted for and all these things. That's how we're going to save democracy. And she's right. I mean, they accuse the other side of what exactly they're doing.
It's really sad. Imagine if they just were truthful. I mean, it'd be like 90% for Trump. I mean, they're literally just their lies are getting them even keeping him this close. I mean, if you really think about it.
I think it says that they're scared.
Doctor, I mean, what do you think, man? I mean, you're
Jump on in.
You're running Florida. I mean, what do you think about all this?
I mean, there's an element of falsehood to the liberal side of politics. There always has been. The word liberal goes back to libre, right? Which they like to say means free speech, right? But lying comes from that same root, lyra, right? It's the liar, to sweet nothings, right? And you see they often run with the false side of things, and that Libra, it also has a connection with the word mirror, right? So what they see is often what they're casting onto people, and the donkey ties into this too, believe it or not. The esoteric meaning behind the donkey too. And
What is the esoteric meaning behind the donkey?
Well, it's Satan.
Oh, wow.
Donkey, yeah.
Okay.
Donkey.
What about the elephant?
That's Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, the big guy. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, thanks for that clarification. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Would you accept being a speaker at the next Trump rally if you were asked to?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think most people don't know about what you're talking about.
That's all right.
I mean, but going back to the Rogan thing, I was going to say was to highlight what Luke was saying. I think we're talking about just the main 3-hour video. There's all these people who don't have attention spans, kind of like me, and they're like, okay, we'll take the 10-minute version, we'll take the 5-minute version. There's a lot of people who are just watching
30-second version.
There's tons of people
Lots
doing
of
that.
clips everywhere. Yep.
So I mean, I think it's reached. I mean, way more than 35 million.
I think at least 100 million with all the
least.
clips combined, with all the shorts, with everything.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is a game changer, and this is something that we also have to kind of comment on, because as an independent journalist, seeing this kind of information dominance from alternative sources rather than the corporate media scares the crap out of the establishment, and I think this is why we're seeing their kind of responses to it. We got the Arizona Republic saying, opinion, Donald Trump's Joe Rogan interview was a brain-rotted waste of 3 hours. I don't think it was. I think it was fascinating. I think it was interesting. I really, really enjoyed the specific part where they talked about getting rid of the income tax. I mean, as kind of a libertarian anarchist guy, that's my love language over there. Getting rid of the income tax here.
Is that
Are you
paper
kidding
owned
me?
by John McCain?
Or you know, probably, or his family, or the military-industrial complex. Who knows? But seeing those larger kind of conversations, seeing the Overton window moved in a way where we're literally discussing getting rid of the income tax, yes, please, and more. Those are very serious discussions that I think need to live in the minds of Americans who are struggling to survive and have to keep paying taxes every freaking year. And now we have the possibility, especially if you buy American-made and produced products, 0 taxes. That's the type of world that I want to live in, and I think that's the type of possibility that the establishment really doesn't want, because taxes aren't a way of balancing the budget. We don't do that anymore. Taxes aren't a way of financing other government programs. They literally print money out of thin air. Taxes are a form of slavery. They're a form of control. They're a form of getting people to bend under your will and to take away their resources away from them for the benefit of course, all the people who hoard the resources for themselves. That's the larger kind of understanding of taxes that I think a lot of people need to have. And now we're finally getting a conversation that they could end.
I'd love it.
Yeah.
You talk about love languages. I mean, he had me at free Ross, and he keeps me at the, getting rid of taxes. I mean, this is like libertarian dream. Oh, and by the way, he's also going to put a few libertarians into his cabinet, and if we have to choose between these two candidates, he's definitely appealing to.
It's a no-brainer. Is the
parties.
liberal media reporting on the no income tax thing?
Of course not.
Exactly.
Of course not.
They would never, because they want to brainwash their lower
that
IQ
thing.
people. They don't want to tell the lower IQ people there's no income tax, because then they'll run to the polls and vote for Trump.
Well, I mean, I think that some people don't understand, like, the no income tax. Like, I've talked to a lot of people while campaigning, while doing other stuff, and they just don't get it. Like, I talk about property taxes, and they're like, well, but I don't pay property taxes because I don't own my place. And it's like, no, you still pay property taxes because you rent. I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding when they get their paycheck, that money went to the government and it could have gone to their pocket. So, yeah, do they understand that? I don't know. I mean, obviously, this audience, we all know.
You guys understand.
Yeah.
The doctor understands.
Yep. Pan is,
That's the greatest answer.
As
Yep.
little as we can,
There's one thing that did concern me regarding to what he said on that Joe Rogan Experience show, and that's when he was talking about national ID and like the digital ID system. Like, doesn't that kind of sound alarm bells to anybody?
Who said
What
that?
did he say exactly?
I don't know. It's on the show, but basically it's kind of to be against like election fraud or to help with securing the border. But I'm not sure. Like, to me, that's kind of like 1984 vibes.
The real ID thing, I think they've been working on for a while. I'm not super familiar with it, but I know that when you go to the airport, they're like, you need real ID, but to keep pushing the year back. 2020, I think it's next year you have to have it.
I'm just concerned that like we need to keep everybody accountable. Like we need to make sure that like people aren't going to overstep or overreach. And I know that you can't, like even as president, there are already steps in place, but I feel like we should definitely not just be like, I love you, you're the savior. Like we need to really kind of watch and just be like, okay, like you're going to be a good choice right now, but then there's also like certain things that I don't agree with. Like I kind of outlined a few things that for me struck me as kind of odd. I was like, wait a minute, red flag here, red flag there. Like there's certain things that I don't really agree with in terms of like the burning of the flag. Like that was one thing that I was like, what? Okay, like you burn the flag, you go to jail for a year. Like I don't know. Like is that cool? Like I don't know.
I wonder how much of that is like Trump actually thinks things through versus him just like, I think he says a lot of stuff that
he won't implement.
Yeah, like shows up. He seems like one of these guys that like blurts out things, and it's
could
like,
be, but I mean, he's doing it at the rally. He's at the Madison Square rally. He's saying that that's what's going to happen. It's like new, and it's like right now. And I'm like, whoa, like why can't you just keep to like the things that you already said? Why are you saying all these crazy like outrageous things now?
Yeah, I agree. No, listen, I if I was Trump's advisor, I'd be like, listen,
the first thing, the first one that got me was like the whole the death penalty for any immigrant that were to kill an American on U.S. soil. Like violence begets violence. Like why? Like okay, you murder someone, I'm gonna murder you. Like I don't know. Is that really like the right kind of energetic exchange that we want to be promoting?
Clearly not.
Send them to heaven quicker.
I don't know. So you agree with that?
They got to be gone to forgive them.
I mean, you have to draw the line somewhere. It's not that I think it's be a case by case basis. I mean, if someone killed your family right now, you would just be like, okay, cool, go 20 years in jail. Like, how is that even solving the problem? I mean, you're coming here, you want to vet people coming here, you want to get the best people coming here. If someone's going to come here and take away someone's whole livelihood and all of we've lost loved ones before.
The entire country is made up of immigrants, pretty much, unless you're. So I mean, like. You lose me a little on that one. Like, yeah, like maybe we need some vetting, but remember we had Ellis Island and we didn't have these issues. Like, I have a hard time as libertarian leading our anarchists.
What do you think should
be
done? And so if I kill your family, what should be done then?
Well, but that's a whole different thing. Are you saying that immigrants who come across the border are guilty of killing families?
I'm saying there's legal immigrants. Like we're legal. There's also
let me
illegal.
finish that point. The problem is, as libertarians, we're saying that the government is the best person to vet people coming in versus a community of people.
I never said I wanted the government to vet.
But who else is vetting them?
The Ellis Island.
That's a whole other discussion. I mean,
well, that's my point.
But the way it's set up right now, that's the government. But I would like to change that. But I'm not in charge.
Okay,
Connor, you had a comment about Ellis Island.
The Ellis Island people were showing up, looking at a country ready to be built, not coming to a, first world. Top of the line.
Do we think we're at the top?
Smartphone right when you enter the border,
Right.
Free hotel, free airplane tickets, free bus rides.
Right, so all of that is welfare.
They're walking into a daycare. The men at Ellis Island fell over dead in coal chambers.
And they built the infrastructure, and they built the bridges, and they built the roads, and they built the West as well.
Everyone at the south
with
border
the Chinese
is looking for a handout. Prove me wrong.
Right, so what you're saying is you have an issue with welfare. Not an issue with immigration, because if you cut out welfare, how many of those people are going to still be coming here looking for handouts?
Yeah. Well, but you guys got to understand, Trump's kind of policies are a direct response to the left. He's saying you'll go to jail for burning the flag because people are being arrested and charged for huge sentences because they had their car that went over a pride street, right? So that's a direct correlation to that. I don't agree with any kind of strict government sentence on these larger kind of symbolic gestures. But especially when it comes to private property. But when we look at Trump's actions here, he's directly responding to a lot of the abuses that do happen in sanctuary cities, liberal cities, democratic cities, where a lot of people who are immigrants are taking advantage of the situation, are taking advantage of the taxpayer, and are going to be future Democratic voters that are going to make this country liberal forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I think we generally agree. The issue, I want to, as immigrant, daughter of immigrants, it's not the immigrant that is the problem. It is the government solution, which is to give welfare to people crossing the border, to rob from Americans who work, to give to people who just showed up. So like, I agree. There has to be a better way. I think we all pretty much agree on that. The problem is it's not necessarily the immigrant. It is the welfare. It's the thing that is drawing people here. So some people are coming here because they have nefarious, like they want to hurt potentially America. We see a lot of young males who are military age crossing the border. I think that those are probably nefarious for the large part. But then you have people that want to come here for better opportunities. And it's really attractive to be like, oh, and by the way, if you cross the border, you're going to get a hotel, a cell phone, your kids are going to get an education, you're going to get food stamps, you're going to get all these things. So, it's just clarifying.
But that's the issue. I think we need a whole new system. Now, this current system we have, I have friends from all over the world like, Robbie, I can't get in. And they just can't get my visa. And then I'm like, just go jump the border. I'm saying you're not doing any vetting for the people who are just crossing illegally. We're doing vetting for the people who are trying to come here legally. So I don't think that's fair because I want as many good people to come here as possible. I love immigrants. And I think this country was built on that. But you can't just have give a priority to someone that's just going to jump illegally, and then the people that are really trying to come here who are going to contribute, who want to do the right things, they can't come. There's something not adding up with the current way it's set up right now. It does
Again, it's run by government. Have you ever walked into a DMV? Have you ever walked into any government office? Give government anything, and they'll find a way to screw it up. I mean, it's just.
So what's your solution then?
My solution is get government out of the business of being the one to choose. Why don't you allow the communities?
We should set up I agree. Let's set up.
If there's no welfare, I think that argument is valid. But with the welfare system, with the way it is now, it just can't work.
Sold. Yeah. Let's go. Let's end welfare.
But that should be the first. But that should be the first thing before even getting into that issue. That should be the first thing at hand, and then let the chips fall where they may. Because then there wouldn't be a larger incentive for people to come here because people are literally being told, hey, you're going to get a free ride. We're going to take care of you. We're going to give you money. We're going to give you these incentives to come here to the United States. And a lot of the people here are predominantly coming not to give, but to take. We got new videos from the Associated Press that just came out a few days ago showing the latest kind of caravan of people moving through, of course, Mexico into the United States, as a lot of people expect Donald Trump to become president of the United States. And then when he does, there's going to be, of course, a closing of the border. I do believe if Donald Trump wins and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are still in power after November 5th, I think what they're going to do to secure their kind of larger domination of this political system, I think they're going to open the borders again. They're going to be like, Trump's coming in, let's open up the borders, let's make this more of a chaotic, crazy system. And I think this is why we're seeing the caravans already start up, because if Trump wins, I think that we're going to see a mad dash at the border afterwards.
Absolutely.
They have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
At that point, if Trump's going to win and change the current policy, I think at that point, how are they going to get new votes?
Yeah, there's a crazy video from a former chief border agent that came out and actually was whistleblowing at what was happening inside of the Biden administration. I'm going to play this clip here for you guys because I think it's absolutely very eye-opening to see what's really happening behind the scenes.
Ties to terrorism. Prior to this administration, in San Diego, we had an exponential increase in significant interest aliens. These are aliens with significant ties to terrorism. Prior to this administration, the San Diego sector averaged 10 to 15 SIA arrests per year. Once word was out the border was far easier to cross, San Diego went to over 100 SIAs in 2022, well over that in 2023, and even more than that registered this year. These are only the ones we caught. At the time, I was told I could not release any information on this increase in SIAs or mention any of the arrests. The administration was trying to convince the public there was no threat at the border. Fentanyl is another issue. The San Diego area sees between 80 and 90% of the methamphetamine and fentanyl seizures annually for our entire country. With little enforcement at the border, these drugs were coming through en masse. During my last year in San Diego, the price for a single pill of fentanyl, for example, went from $10 to 25 cents.
He asked.
To make matters worse, during 2022 and 23, I had to shut down San Diego traffic checkpoints, which are critical for drug interdiction, because the resources had been diverted to the process and release mission. The large numbers also had and still have a negative impact on the San Diego community. I had to release illegal aliens by the hundreds each day into communities who could not support them. To quiet the problem, 2 flights a week were provided from San Diego to Texas. These flights simply brought aliens that would have been released in San Diego over to Texas. Each flight cost approximately $150,000. This was the administration's way to try and quiet the border-wide crisis.
Yeah, that's
Insane.
absolutely crazy. That's absolutely insane that we have whistleblowers, the former chief of Border Patrol, coming out and speaking about this larger disaster and, most importantly, this larger cover-up effort, especially when it came to their terror encounters and encounters with criminals that they had on the specific border that we know about. Now, imagine all the ones that we have no idea about. So it really does kind of make you wonder what's really happening behind the scenes here, as a lot of small towns all around the United States are being rocked by all these new people coming in and the government kind of giving over all of their resources to them.
Are they, when they're going to Texas, how long after this that they're spending time in Texas do you think they're allowed to vote?
Well, first they attended South by Southwest. Then they're going to do a couple, I don't know. But
I mean, they supposedly have to become legal citizens and get that right to vote. But I mean, I don't know, because we don't need IDs to vote. So
Exactly.
how many are voting? I don't know. All of them? Some of them? I don't know. How would we know?
I've got a friend over here in Palm Beach County whose mom votes multiple times in his name and their family's name for the left. It's so easy to do, you wouldn't believe it.
I'm not surprised. Listen, people who have passed away somehow managed to vote as well. So I'm not surprised. Are you? Like, seriously?
I've gotten 3 ballots to my house in California. I'm just wondering, are they trying, is there is there a mastermind? Am I just thinking conspiracy minded? Are they trying to turn Texas blue? Went through my head.
Yes, all of the above. Yes.
Yeah, James O'Keefe is coming out with a new documentary, and he kind of described how he literally sent random people who just went to a lot of these kind of immigration centers, and they said, "Oh, I don't have any ID," and like, "Yeah, totally cool. We'll give you a hotel, no worries. Where do you want to fly anywhere? Do you have any family members around the country? We'll give you a free ticket right now." And he was like, "I don't need ID." They're like, "Yeah, you don't need ID. It's cool, totally fine." So I think that's a lapse in the security system, because last time I remembered, you go through the TSA, you got to show your identification, and
But not for them.
Yeah, and very sadly, you know, you go to vote. Many places you don't even need to show your identification either, which I think is kind of a
Not
problem.
here in Florida.
But let's just say you're one of these terrorists. Let's say you're a hobbyist, a jihadi from the Middle East that previously got a lot of CIA funding. Walk in through the border, go into one of these places. I don't need ID. You're on a terror watch list. Doesn't matter. Free airplane ticket. Come on in, bub. That to me really does show a lot of how this whole entire national security system is just a big old show. It doesn't matter.
I appreciate O'Keefe doing that, because it seems like they're on their last straw here. They're planning this out they know if everyone knew, let's just say Trump, whether or not he does no income tax, right? That would change the course of history. Who would ever vote Democrat again if he was to do that? It'd be like, whoa, we love this. I think everyone would love that. So they know that if they don't get their people to vote, they're going to lose it, right?
I hope so. From your lips to God's ears, let's go. I mean, I have this thing where I think that the government is too big regardless. Like as a libertarian, we're all like on the Trump team right now, but
even your boy Ron Paul tweeted the other day about no income tax. Like, that's making America great again.
Let's go step by step. Let's see what happens. But that would be amazing. I mean, and here libertarians have been talking about this. We've been talking about taxation as theft for 50 years. So welcome to being libertarian, America.
Trump, if you're watching, just come out and make it happen, man. I think what Luke was saying about no income tax, we pay tariffs. Let's make it happen. Let's change the course of history.
Think about how much we're going to buy in America versus
if he becomes president, and how much that would incentivize Americans to, of course, support local business and business, of course, from their own communities.
I like that.
Rather than, of course, Chinese-made goods. So
sorry, Timu.
No, it would be something that would be absolutely revolutionary. As of course, I'm not even a fan of tariffs, but I'll take that if you get rid of the income tax any day. But I think
hallelujah.
I think the economy is one of the major aspects of this election. Immigration is another one, as there's another story here from the Daily Mail describing how a small Midwestern town was just overwhelmed by 3,000 African migrants that are living tax-free in their town. This is a tiny town in Ohio that is now trying to deal with a sudden influx of African refugees who just arrived overnight. And of course, we're talking about Lockland, Ohio. It's very close to Cincinnati. It was home to 3,500 people. Now it's
doubled.
It doubled overnight because of these Biden immigration policies, as a lot of people from Mauritania, of all places. A lot of people believe that's Atlantis as well.
Yeah.
Some people contest that, but we could get into that in a little bit. But a lot of people from Mauritania are finding their way into this small town, as I think it's fair to say that a lot of the older residents of that town probably will be voting for Donald Trump.
They had me at tax-free. How are they living tax-free? Asking for myself, really. I was going to say for a friend, but no. I, too, would love to live like they do, tax-free. Thank you.
I wonder what the crisis is over there for them to be asylum seekers.
Well, they're not really
It's
asylum
called-
seekers. Asylum seeker is a lie. It's a term that has been absolutely weaponized by these NGOs and government globalist organizations that use it as an excuse to do human trafficking. So there's no real kind of larger asylum play. They just use the system and abuse it by saying they're going for asylum, and that's what allows them to, of course, enter the United States.
Not all the time, though. I don't think that that's like always. I think that some people are legally fleeing dangerous situations. But I mean, I can agree with you, Luke, that just recently Libs of TikTok basically told us that there was an asylum seeker that was from Nicaragua that's here in Florida and did some pretty bad things to this woman, or almost did. But luckily,
7% of the population in Nicaragua is here.
Yeah,
was reading that
well, I
earlier.
mean, I think it's pretty crazy. If you watch that video, you see what could have happened to anybody.
Okay.
One of us girls.
To be fair, though, Nicaragua is actually a communist country, and people, like last year, 7 of their presidential candidates were thrown in jail. So like they actually are legal asylum seekers. That one person might be a horrible human being, but nonetheless, people coming from Nicaragua are entitled to seek asylum. And to another issue with Nicaragua is it is the gateway for Cubans. Nicaragua opened the floodgates, and Cubans, millions of them fled to Cuba and are coming through the border through Nicaragua. So
Why not build a specific town in, let's say, Mexico or another country where you have people that want to come in and they prove themselves and they do live there, and then you can vet them that way.
Who's going to build that town?
That's what I'm saying. Well, it's a lot cheaper to house them there than it is here.
It's called New Mexico.
So why are we not doing? Why has no one ever
called
thought?
Texas.
Why has no one ever thought of this kind of stuff? Right?
We did.
Because I'd like the government to become smaller, not larger.
I would love that too, but that's just not happening right now, my dear.
Looks like we got some like TikTok videos from this Ohio town of these, individuals that have kind of gone into that specific city. But, you hear about these stories, and I think there's absolutely a lot more of them than we're actually hearing about, since you keep hearing about them in all these different towns and all these different places. And it definitely does seem like the Biden administration is trying to hide all of these new people that they're importing all throughout, especially in Miami. Miami also received an extreme amount of undocumented immigrants, but you can't tell because everyone already speaks Spanish here. And it's impossible to figure out who's who. Me and Robbie hit the streets this past Saturday, and we were interviewing people, and we were like, do you support Kamala or do you support Trump? The overwhelming answer we got was, "¿Qué?" No, I'm like, okay, all right, thank you.
There was a lot of tourists too, but
Yeah.
yes, I do got to brush up on my Spanish because when you're down in South Beach, that is the primary language.
Well, I did volunteer. I'll come with you next and translate, and I'll tell you who they're voting for. And I bet you, here in Miami, it's going to be mostly Trump. All those
Absolutely not. No. It was like me and Robbie hit the streets. It was a lot of Kamala supporters that
It's like
we
60-40,
found out.
would you say 60-40?
And then every time we were like, what's the reason? And they're like, women's rights. Women's rights, that's it.
Yeah,
these two
I
girls
wanna
on a
murder my
skateboard,
baby.
They just cared about abortion. They couldn't name anything else. They were literally just abortion.
You know what's
abortion.
crazy about that whole argument is that it has now been pushed back to the states. So the whole I have to vote for Kamala to keep abortion legal.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. You need to go push this in your state. Here in Florida, we have Amendment 4 to legalize abortion up until viability. If that's what you want, it doesn't matter who you vote for in Florida.
Trump is the most
vote
pro-choice.
for or against Amendment
he's
4.
the most pro-choice
Vote against.
Republican of all time. I think he's just kind of pandering to the pro-life vote, but he's more pro-choice than any other Republican in history.
What was the demographics for the people that were polling that way?
For the 60-40 with me and Luke,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of
What kind of
people
people
from,
are you guys
from
talking
other
to?
countries.
We're talking to everybody, anybody and everybody that walked
Anybody
down
who
the
walked
street.
by.
We were like, what's up? So we're going to be releasing those videos soon on the YouTube channel because we dusted off the old microphone. We made it out to the streets. It was good to have Robbie here. I held the camera for Robbie. Robbie held the camera for me, and so
we're gonna do it again soon. It's real fun on the streets of Miami. If you want to come, come look for us in the streets. If you're watching, we're gonna interview you. We're gonna ask you who you're voting for. We're gonna ask you about your love life. We're gonna do all kinds of cool things.
Yeah, and if members of LukeUnfiltered.com want us to ask a specific question to the general public, let us know right now in the Telegram chat. All the members get access to the Telegram chat, and then we, of course, will be listening to that. We still don't have a caller. That caller could be you. Sign up to LukeUnfiltered.com right now, and that's one of many kind of perks and options you guys get by specifically just signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com. We got some super chats, Steph. Let's read them, please.
All right, we have Switzerland Play IT saying, I can miss Sophia even over Streamlabs. Thank you. We miss Sophia too. We have Brother Clint saying, does this doctor self-medicate?
I think he's talking about you, Dr. Longo.
Dr. Longo. Well, if you know his full name, maybe.
Do you want to answer that?
Well, let's just say vote against Amendment 3.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's
All right.
not in our favor.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that. I can't believe I have another vote against Amendment 3 person
Sure,
here.
yeah.
I'll vote against the two. I thought about it earlier. I don't.
You're going to vote against both
I'll vote
amendments?
against it. I'm against abortion.
Right.
So
That one was a tough one for me,
Yeah.
though, because I'm against abortion personally, but I also don't think that the government has a right to tell you what you can and can't do with your
Yeah, I
body.
agree.
So it's a little tough for me because 6 weeks is too small of a time. Like I've had
Think
4
eight- you
kids,
think
and you
8
find.
weeks? You think
Well,
8
the
weeks
thing
is
is, 6 weeks is a misnomer. You find out you're pregnant
Yeah.
if you are exactly on time at 4 weeks. So that gives you 2 weeks to make a decision. I'm against it,
Use a
but-
Jimmy hat, okay, guys? Like that's problem solved. Use a
Little-
condom.
Okay,
little
I'm
green.
sorry. I'm gonna just say something that is TMI, but I got pregnant twice while on birth control. But here,
That's because you're extra fertile,
But a lot of people are. A lot of people are, and these things are not.
and those are
necessarily-
blessings.
They are. Oh my God!
So-
Both of these children have
I
actual
want to
names.
give more blessings. I want to give more blessings.
I want to be the
people out
godfather
there,
of your children.
and that's why I am pro-life.
My children have
Yeah.
godfathers, but sure, you're welcome to be an additional one. Listen, it happens. I'm against abortion, but I also know that I can't speak for everyone, and I don't think the government should either. So I have a hard time with Amendment 4.
What about the life of the baby? I think that life is
Right.
just as important as the mother's.
So do I. What part of I'm against abortion, Luke? I agree with you.
I know, but I'm just kind of
Here.
Yeah.
deconstructing that argument, saying I think that baby matters too.
I agree.
We can use astrology to track this and responsibly avoid it. Both parties responsibly can avoid this with no medical intervention needed. If you really end up in a bad situation, okay, we've got papaya seeds for men. Let's know there's alternatives out there. Papaya seeds for men, green papaya.
Wait, what do you do with the papaya seeds?
Hang on, green papaya smoothies for women, or if they like the taste. Those are natural contraceptives.
Oh, I didn't know that. But what do you do with the papaya seeds?
Well, papaya seeds, this is an ancient practice. The papaya seeds will lower sperm count in men, and if you do this the right way, you can lower it all the way to 0. But when you come off papaya seeds, you can come back, and voila, you have better fertility than before.
Huh, interesting. Robbie's ordering a whole bunch of papaya seeds right now on Amazon. I see him right there.
So you can raw dog with papaya seeds. How long have you been doing papaya seeds?
Again, not medical. Listen, not medical advice here. All right, please do your own due diligence, please.
Robbie, I don't think you'll have any men with you won't have any issue with the men of Miami, but the papayas taste good no matter what. They grow local here, so have a field day.
I heard that if you take papaya seeds, if you swallow them, it helps with parasites.
Yes.
So parasites
that too.
and
Well, yeah, you'll see
and
that.
no babies.
You'll see that with a lot of anti-parasitic protocols. They'll say maybe avoid this while you're pregnant, because even with blood type issues, the body can sometimes look at a pregnancy like a parasite because it's demanding a lot of nutrients. And I'm not reducing it to that, but I'm saying you should be careful with anything like that can
wow, super
damage
interesting.
parasites. It's anti-organism. So
Oh wow.
How long do you have to eat the papaya seeds? for
Robbie,
this to work?
let it go, man.
Robbie's so curious right now. Use natural lambskin Jimmy hats. That's it. Don't get those microplastics. Don't get, be careful. But I think that issue could be solved that way. Just use lambskin condoms.
Lambskin's
Boom.
great.
Problem solved. No need for abortion.
Thank you, doctor.
Well,
And then you were talking about regulating. You were talking about astrology too. Did you mean like women syncing up their cycles, understanding when they're fertile and not?
Yeah, so this is a little out there, admittedly, but we all know there's a 28-day cycle. This just so happens to be the lunar cycle, right? The lunar month. That's where we get the word month. A month. 1 out of 10, that's a tenth. 1 month out of the greater cycles, a month. Well, if women learn, it's not that hard. You can track this. Using astrology, it's easier to track. Some people roll their eyes at astrology. I roll my eyes at them. But basically, the man also, this is where it gets really out there. Men also have a monthly cycle. It's not a menstrual thing. It's none of that. It's not. Well, I'm sure you can give us some details.
Wow,
No,
I did
just
not know
kidding.
Ben had a menstrual cycle.
I had no
Interesting.
idea about this either.
The
Well,
liberals knew it.
It's a lunar thing, and it doesn't have to do with menstruation. But men do have this cycle where basically you should abstain from the naughty business for about 2.5 days, and it would work in your favor. And you see, with women it's very obvious. With men it's a little more.
Why should we
subtle.
abstain for these 2 days, and how do we find these 2 days?
Right. That's also this very like obscure alchemical
Is the
information.
Christos thing? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Good job. It's involved with that. So
Got it.
Steph, enlighten us.
Yeah,
I
I'm
want to
so
know,
lost.
Steph.
Nah,
give us-
Luke. You have to come across it. You have to figure it out. I can't tell you the secrets of the universe.
Oh, goodness
Well,
gracious.
people can look up people like Montauk Chia, which is the whole Tao thing, and I don't talk about this on my YouTube channel. This is people's private business. I don't want to get up in people's private business, but if we're talking about abortion, we've got to address most people are idiots when it comes to fertility, and they're just cleaning up the mess, and then they're arguing about laws about how to clean up this mess. Let's avoid the mess. And I'm not saying human life's a mess, but when we treat it like an after-the-fact problem, yeah, it's no good.
We got a YouTube chat from somebody that says, my couch pulls out. I don't. So,
Right. Well, that's the time-tested method. Can't go wrong with
I mean, you can.
good, healthy
you
family.
can go wrong with the pull-out method. However, at the end of the day, we're talking about human life, and I think it is such a magical, special thing that I think we should value it more. I think that there's something to be said for the value of life.
yeah, especially when it just begins, I think, too.
Yeah.
And respecting it and giving it freedom and allowing it to, of course, grow and be as amazing and as incredible as it is. Sadly, there's not a lot of respect on life. There's a lot of kind of prioritizing of convenience, of just doing what is easy to do for your kind of larger dopamine-induced cultural kind of pleasures that people obsess about and abuse routinely. I think a lot of people are just in this kind of larger dopamine cycle where they are being kind of manipulated, not just through the social media algorithms, but through a lot of the kind of larger pleasure centers in the world that's kind of leading us into a brave new world kind of society. People talking about the drug Soma. I think this is the new drug that's Soma. And I think
Right.
a lot of our behavior is centered towards this Soma-like kind of addiction that doesn't prioritize long-term building and sacrifice for the kind of greater good, but rather just the short-term interest of, yes, I got my rocks off here really quick. So I think if we're gonna, fix the abortion issue, we have to fix that issue first. The mentality and the mindset of a lot of young people who sadly are dealing with record numbers of mental health issues. So.
Absolutely.
That high
There's-
prices of living, just everything. It's really hard for young people today.
Yeah.
There's also a much more insidious element to the abortion discussion. I'm sure this has been, maybe you guys have brought this up before, but the ancient Canaanites from the Old Testament, they were rather into child sacrifice. It just so happens, well, it's true. Some of the earliest Native Americans here in Florida and southeast United States, they were into the practice, some of them, of child sacrifice.
The Mayans too.
The firstborn. Now, the abortion movement was largely funded, directed with Rockefeller money. It was actually some of the women in the Rockefeller dynasty who really spearheaded this. And you'll notice John D. Rockefeller retired to Florida. You have the whole Jekyll Island thing kicking off 1911, 1912, Titanic sinking. Well, then John D. Rockefeller retires to Florida. Why did he do that? He wanted to live forever. He had his experts search far and wide.
Maybe he still is in Antarctica right now.
Maybe. Florida also has a good legacy of freezing people, cryo sleep, stuff like that.
Like Walt Disney.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Walt Disney.
one of the
Allegedly.
one of the only functional real places that does that today will freeze you and take your money and promise to unfreeze you later on. They're in Florida, one of the few places that does that. But to the abortion thing, there's a tribe of Indians that used to live in Florida, from Tampa Bay over to Jekyll Island. That was their whole territory. They were called the Timucua. John D. Rockefeller was fascinated with the Timucua. He wanted to live like them. Okay, today, if you go to a restaurant, you'll see the dish, Rockefeller oysters. He built his Indian mound cottage on top of a Indian oyster mound. He was obsessed. They do pottery underneath the houses at Jekyll Island. And I'm sure Luke knows this is where they signed the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
And we get our taxes, et cetera, et cetera. This tribe was also very into the practice of child sacrifice.
Yeah. Rockefeller's cottage at Jekyll Island is super weird, super just like really bad juju and like really bad kind of, crazy ghost stories coming out of it as well. Allegedly, it's also on an ancient burial ground as well.
Yes.
And there's, creatures that live within it. So that's what I've heard. So
Yeah, you've got the, what's his name? Edward Griffith, something like that. He wrote the Creature from Jekyll Island. Mm-hmm. That was over there. A lot of people know
G.
that.
Edward Griffin, you mean?
G. Edward Griffin.
Yeah, G. Edward
yes.
Griffin. He's awesome. He's been on our show a number of times. He's an incredible person.
Amazing. He kind of blew the doors wide open on the whole financial side of things. Of course, with the Federal Reserve being signed off in Jekyll Island. Well, the story kind of drops off there. On my YouTube channel, we've gone and we've tracked the life of John D. Rockefeller after that point. What happened after the Federal Reserve was implemented? He moved down to Florida, okay? Built his house in another set of Indian burial mounds, this time in Ormond Beach, Florida, the home of birthplace of NASCAR and racing and, gas. The Indians used to worship oil, too, when it came to the surface, so Rockefeller was very infatuated with this Indian culture. They, you could say, founded the art of abortion in America. The Rockefellers picked up on that. Not only that, they were big into the hermaphrodite movement. The Timucua tribe, the natives of Florida, the place where John D. Rockefeller chose to live amongst their ancient homes, this tribe was up to a third of the population, up to.
Had both genitalia?
No, they only had that word back then, about 500 years ago. Hermaphrodite was the only word they had. So it wasn't both genitalia. I'm not an expert in that field. Maybe you can offer some but
Wow.
But a lot of this also kind of correlates back to a lot of kind of ancient Indian tribes that also performed abortions before people knew what abortions were.
Yes.
So they would, especially when it came to, of course, child sacrifice, not just when they were born, but when they were also in the womb, and they had multiple kind of larger, very kind of disgusting actions that they thought that they were kind of doing specifically in order to appease the larger gods out there in the universe. But if you can't put the microphone a little bit closer to yourself, if you don't mind. Sorry about that. But no, keep going, because it's fascinating stuff, especially about the Rockefeller stuff, because Rockefeller had a lot to do with our current modern day society and why it's in such disarray that it is now.
Sure. Yeah, they were some of the earliest proponents of the LGBTQ agenda, believe it or not. It's kind of unspoken. They were behind abortion as well, and all these practices go back to not just the Canaanites from the Old Testament. That's actually why I think they were fixated on this one tribe. Is there's another gentleman who went over there after G. Edward Griffin. G. Edward Griffin wrote The Creature of Jekyll Island. Then Timothy Bence was a pastor who went over there. He's the one who took all the financial part of The Creature of Jekyll Island, signing of the Federal Reserve. He's the one who tied it together with the ancient Indian magic. And he basically revealed that, as Luke mentioned, Rockefeller Cottage on Jekyll Island is built in the footprint of an ancient Indian burial mound, which those are all over Florida, but this one in particular was said to have an altar. The Creature of Jekyll Island does not mention the altar. It just stops with the finances. Doesn't mention the Titanic either. But Timothy Bentz went over there. He showed the dark magic, the ancient practice of child sacrifice on these spots. It's the same spot where Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, and a bunch of their representatives of the Rothschilds as well, all met Jekyll Island to sign this. A lot of people know this. You know, it's out there on YouTube. The exact spot where the pen was signed was the footprint of an altar where an ancient sacrificial cult did their works. And we talk about debt and taxes. These are satanic practices. It's black magic to trick someone into thinking they owe you something when they haven't provided or taken anything from you. It's black magic, debt. Yeah, right to its core. Jesus understood this. It's one of his big messages here. But we followed this story down to Ormond Beach. That all kicked off. People can see that on lots of good people did videos. And then the story moves to Ormond Beach, Florida. Ormond Beach, Florida, John D. Rockefeller wanted to live forever. He almost made it. He was like 97 or so.
I think he was 100. I think he had a 100-year-old celebration.
He was close.
Yeah.
John D. Rockefeller, the senior, he was close. Probably about 97. He died in Ormond Beach, which is why that matters too. I've been to the place. We've gone there. There's a basement there. It just so happens. Basements, you don't find them in Florida. This place has a basement. Well, then we discover he moved to Florida because he sent his agents around the world to find the place that was most conducive to long life. You want to talk about a word you said on the way in here? I don't know if I can say it, but basically that blood, things like that, can lengthen life, prolong life. Well, he was also obsessed with the Fountain of Youth story out of Florida.
Yeah. And there's a big Fountain of Youth story down here as well.
Yeah.
And there's already Silicon Valleys that use blood boys, especially in California, where they literally get younger people to give them their blood. We saw the guy who's trying to live forever, Brian Johnson, also implement the same kind of program with his own child as well.
Sure.
And then he's also giving his blood to his father. That's allowing his father to also regenerate and live longer as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm fascinated by that. As the mother of a young daughter, I'm like, can I do this? I want her blood. No.
Well, what you could do, especially if you're having children, is you could actually source stem cells from the placenta after you give birth and have those stem cells available to you if your child or you or anyone in your immediate family ever gets sick. So you could use those stem cells in order to kind of fix and regenerate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very rich people today will often have triplets using IVF with this exact mindset, that one of these children who they plan on loving and raising will, if it comes to it, will be a sacrificial goat. I actually grew up with a pair of triplets who were IVF'd, and one of them was pretty much the organ donor tag along, just in case if anything went wrong. Luckily, they all made it to adulthood, but it can get pretty grim, especially on the science end of making babies, you know.
Could you imagine growing up being the donor for your siblings? Like, that's a messed up.
Well, that's another thing with IVF. That's another reason why IVF is coming up to bat in this issue is it's not just IVF, oh, we're saving people, we're helping them have children. My mother did IVF for a career. I was IVF'd. Doesn't matter. But
Thank God you were born.
basically, part of the practice is creating 3 viable, they try and make it triplets almost every time. And part of the process is the other 2 don't make it, usually.
In the womb? They don't make it in the womb?
Usually intentionally. So a lot of people will qualify that as close to, if not, an abortion. You're treating 2 people like options. They don't make it. Their goal was never to make it. So that's why IVF is also a hot topic. People kind of brush it off like, oh, well, just help people get pregnant. But there's a lot of wasted pregnancies, wasted embryos.
Also, a lot of
in
those
IVF
embryos that don't get used get destroyed. So it's like an abortion. Or you leave it frozen.
Or I mean, there's even people talking about that being like a commodity. Like, I've seen that.
Oh, totally. That's one of the earliest black market commodities.
Yeah, if you look at what's happening in Ukraine right now, there's a huge baby trafficking market where a lot of the women there are just using their bodies as surrogates for a lot of rich people.
Right.
That's going on here, too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I've seen a lot of these cam girls operating fighter drones with their free hand a lot of the time. They got a little bit of a cam girl problem over there in Ukraine, too.
I want to know, not to switch topics, but going back to your talk earlier, you mentioned the Titanic. Do you have some beliefs on if there's important people on there that were possibly
course.
not wanting to implement the Federal Reserve? And
Yeah, if the Titanic made it to the United States, we wouldn't have a Federal Reserve system.
that's
Right.
what I was alluding to.
Yeah, the three greatest opponents, we have John Jacob Astor IV, Guggenheim, and Isidore Straus. You had the three greatest opponents to the Federal Reserve System, not just the
They're on
act.
board the Titanic.
They were all on board the Titanic. You want to talk about astrology. J.P. Morgan was the richest man on earth when he was alive, probably neck and neck with John D. Rockefeller. They were good friends. Well, they also had astrology in common. They loved astrology. They loved mysticism. It was all secret. It was all behind the scenes, as you'd expect. But J.P. Morgan was a famous astrologer. He carried around a one-of-a-kind pocket watch. You know, rich people have pocket watches, not wrist watches, right? Billionaires have pocket watches, not wrist watches. Well, the pocket watch that J.P. Morgan had, one of a kind, it had 5 hands instead of 2 to track the movements of the bodies in the heavens, the astral bodies. So he was a practicing astrologer. He was a financial astrologer. Most big hedge funds will consult some type of astrologer or something just to be safe, just like soccer teams will. You know, they get pretty crazy with that. But J.P. Morgan said millionaires don't use astrology. Billionaires do. He not only funded the Titanic, he insured the Titanic. He was the VIP guest with the largest suite on the ship. He did not show up the day of, unannounced.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was insurance scam, it was a ploy to knock off the opponents to the Federal Reserve, which he was a proponent of, or it was just he saw the fates and dodged a bullet.
Being clairvoyant. Yeah.
Some combination of the three, I would say. But that all ties into the Jekyll Island thing. Boom, we get the Federal Reserve. Opponents out of the way. All the good money in America was pretty much gone. All the, big, strong billionaires who were on the side of good, they're out of the way. And some people would even debate that. But John Jacob Astor, that's where we get Waldorf Astoria schools. You know, a lot of this theosophical movement, too, was in bed with the Astor family. There's a city by the name of Astor in Florida. And the Astors, Rockefellers, these
New
guys.
York City, there's Astor Place.
Of course, yeah. And a lot of our friends probably went to Waldorf schools. But these were kind of the forces of good, and they kind of lost this battle. We're not going to lose the war, but they lost this battle. Titanic was a big hit. But then John D. Rockefeller, he wants to move to Florida. They pioneered the art of retiring to Florida. Oysters, Rockefeller, like I said, this is like old people's favorite food in Florida. The Indians made their mounds
Martha's
out of
favorite,
oysters.
It's my favorite, too.
Sure.
I like oysters a lot.
Yeah.
I don't like
I'm
oysters.
thinking about you, Luke.
Now, basically, he had his agents search the world for the place that would be most conducive for him living forever. He wanted to live as long as he could. He wanted to make it to 100 real bad. Now, part of that lifestyle, he only drank water from what he believed to be the fountain of youth in Florida. That was part of his decision to go move down there. And he would buy this from a specific bottling station. It was called Orange City Water. You can look this up, Orange Water. Florida spring water. Florida was discovered because Juan Ponce de Leon was looking for the fountain of youth. Mm-hmm. And Rockefeller, it doesn't matter if you believe that story, you believe that Rockefeller believed that story. He knew the real deal about Florida history. He was obsessed with this tribe. Remember that tribe I was describing? Sacrificed their kids, did the whole LGBT thing. A third of the population was, pretty much transgender. They also... Shit, I forgot what I was going to say. My bad.
Not so fun.
You were talking
You're
about...
tripping out Robbie. Robbie's like totally in the zone right now.
know.
He's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You were talking about the tribe that was in Georgia that they had a third of their population was I don't know how they were doing transgender. They were doing surgeries back then. How were they even doing transgender stuff?
You don't have to do the
I don't
surgery
wanna
for
know.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to do
Oh,
surgery. You can-
here. So that tribe, when the Spanish and French first showed up to Florida, these are the first Europeans setting foot on, continental United States. This matters, right? You don't get your pretty little Jamestown Pocahontas story. We're talking about 7-foot tall trans child sacrificers. Like this was a new
Nephilim?
This was a new world. Yeah, that word has been thrown around. With if people want to see the altar that I'm talking about too, you can go look up New Smyrna. No, not New Smyrna. That's East Coast. It's called New Port Richey Temecula stone. You can see what one of these ancient Temecula stone altars looked like, just like the one that our Federal Reserve System was founded on top of. And you can see it's two faces on a stone. Temecula, Timucua. Timu, like Tim, like Temecula.
I feel like Luke
I'm
is our
dyslexic.
genie.
This is not the job for me.
It's Richie with a Y. That's probably one of my videos.
Right there.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll put it
But
up here.
you know, some of the people who like argue against this story, like we went to the Jekyll Island Museum, they didn't like us there, and they were.
Is this the stone right here?
Yep, that's what a Temecula altar looks like. You can see it's a big flat stone, big enough to stretch a person across. There's a cavity on the top. There's two faces carved into it, like old faces carved into it. I mean, this is dark magic we're talking about.
Where are the faces?
That's a cavity in the middle right there. The faces you'll see here in a sec. I didn't take this video, but God bless them for going there and taking one. I've taken a couple. He might show you here, whoever that is, a couple of the faces on this rock. And it's bone chilling. You go out there, you know exactly what they're talking about over in Jekyll Island. People who
There,
argue
I
against
see the
this,
face right
yeah,
there.
there's
Where?
one face. He'll point back down to it. Yeah. There's
Right there,
one
right
face
there.
right there, yeah. So those are ancient petroglyphs. Those are some of the only petroglyphs in Florida. And you can see there it encompasses Jekyll Island over to Tampa Bay. Big stretch of territory. These people were very tall. But what's very important is they're said to have lived to 300 years old. That sounds ridiculous, right? Well, the Bible tells us some people were living to 900. When you look at Florida water, there's something to this. There's species, and you know, I hope everyone's aware of the Fountain of Youth story. It's a reality.
For the people who don't know, what's the lore and how does it connect to Florida?
Yeah. So Columbus, we just had Columbus Day here a couple of weeks ago. Columbus was looking for something. He had navigators, an Irish navigator who'd been across the Atlantic before. And he bounced into the Bahamas. Well, the Bahamas are just about a chain of islands off the coast of Florida. Well, 20 years go by. The United States is pretty much untouched. You know, the Vikings were there way before, but we're talking about age of discovery. The Spanish and French show up, and that's 1513. The Spanish show up. That's Ponce de Leon leading this expedition. The story, infamous, Orson Welles tells this story. Hemingway was obsessed with this story. It's Fountain of Youth. First, they land in the Bahamas. They're getting stories about the Fountain of Youth. Hey, there's people over there who stand very tall. They have cities of gold. They live for hundreds of years. It's remarkable. And Juan Ponce de Leon, they heard this, and they heard of a land called Bimini. Bimini was one of the original names for Florida. Today, it's just a little island at the Bahamas, but Bimini used to mean all of Florida. So they heard about these waters in Bimini that give long life. In Juan Ponce de Leon's case, he was actually, it's joked, one of the earliest references to the Fountain of Youth is that he was impotent. He had erectile dysfunction, and this fountain got the job done on that too. The Floridians had never heard of such a condition. So they hightail it for Florida. They land on Florida, they mess around for a couple decades. 1565, voila, you get your first city in the continental United States. St. Augustine, Florida. That's
Beautiful city.
it's remarkable. Well, that whole area, it's where Rockefeller, his business partner, Henry Flagler, that's his co-founder of Standard Oil. Everybody knows about John D. Rockefeller. Nobody really knows about Flagler.
Unless you're a Floridian.
Flagler Beach.
Exactly.
Flagler, the street that divides Miami from north to south.
Yeah.
He's the one that built the railroad all the way down to the Keys. I mean, like,
Thank
if
you.
you're Floridian, you got to know about him.
Right. And there's a Flagler Memorial over here in Miami. You can rent a jet ski out and go see it. It's one of the largest obelisks in the world behind the Washington, D.C. monument. they made one to Henry Flagler.
Is that the one here in like Miami Beach?
Yeah,
There's
it's
like
They made a whole island for it.
Yeah. I had never seen it being a local Floridian until I went to an RFK event. Luke, I'm sure you remember.
Make America Healthy
Yeah,
Again.
and one of the houses, literally, you can see this obelisk from there. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that's there. Interesting.
A lot of obelisks here in Florida.
Totally.
A crap ton of them everywhere.
Well, it's a very phallic state. You know, if you've ever seen a map, it's very...
A lot of GMO mosquitoes, too.
That's why it's such a great state. It's a
Yeah.
very, penile,
Virile.
very fertile,
yeah.
very representative of the male junk.
Well, it's
state.
very representative of America, too. You'll see this whole drain the swamp, DC's no good narrative. You're seeing a political recentering into Florida, and that's really true to America's history. The legacy of republicanism in America, Florida.
Florida took off the map. I mean, I was living in California. I moved here during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people from blue states had moved. A huge influx of people.
Totally.
That's right. Bow down to my Florida. This is the... No, I'm kidding.
We're working
Make
on...
Florida
No, this
free
is a
again.
very special place. I love the space. There's a special energy around it. I definitely want to learn a lot of maybe how to use some of the information that you're talking about,
Sure.
because it's definitely fascinating. Before getting into all of that, we wanted to talk about one of our sponsors, and that, of course, is landofbiltong.com. Check them out. Use promo code WRC10 for 10% off of your purchase. It's a family-friendly snack, low in carbs, packed with protein, making biltong the ultimate health snack, something perfect to talk about in between sacrifices of other human beings. Biltong is a great source of iron, also serves as a source of several other essential nutrients, including magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins, which translates into exceptional gains in all aspects of life. If you follow any high-protein, meat-based diet, biltong should be an essential part of your diet. Code WRC for free shipping. Code WRC10 for 10% off of purchases over $45. This stuff is great. As you can see, we eat it here in this house, and it's great to have. I really do kind of appreciate Anton. I do appreciate the business. They support a lot of independent media. They mail us a bunch of this stuff. A lot of the people who, of course, show up to our meetups always get a bunch of this stuff. They always appreciate it. And once you have it, it's great. I have it from time to time, especially when I'm too busy, especially if we're not cooking. I'm like biltong right away. And I really do love it.
Yeah, and you guys don't miss your chance for the Biltong Challenge. It's a 4-week challenge. It's a $600 prize pack of Biltong. Purchase 2 pounds of Biltong, post your weight check photo on day 1 and on day 28, and tag their pages, and you'll be in the draw. Use code FIT24 on landofbiltong.com for 10% off and automatic entry. So the entries close on November 26th. And you can follow Land of Biltong at king_of_Biltong.
Yeah, great guy. Good stuff. Great products made at his home. The government is trying to go after him, so you support him. You support us as well. How else do we continue that fascinating freaking conversation? We also have some super chat stuff. Let's finish off the super chats, please.
Okay. Yep, we got some super chats here from Whistling P-Hole saying,
Nice.
legally, we allow a lot of dumb people in. Thank you for that. We have Little Drinky Poo saying, how would Trump get rid of income tax, though? Joe asked him how he would, and then he just starts telling a story about William McKinley, which is great before we had income tax, but how would you know now? How would you now?
You set up tariffs. Set up tariffs on international trade and goods coming into this country. That's the tax that will be generated, and that's the money that will pay for everything.
Put the prisoners to work. That one too.
I like that one.
Mm-hmm. You ever drive down the highway and you see 10 construction? We love our construction workers out there. But you ever see 10 of them just standing around
Watching
for
one
an
guy
hour?
do all the work.
Yeah, I think there's people who would be eager to do that work. So just sorting that out, getting the money where it's supposed to go to passionate people. Government wastes more money than we need to keep ourselves afloat,
Yeah, efficiency is important. We also have DKK No, sorry. We have Red Viking saying, we miss Clintina. Oh, we miss Clintina. Sad face, or kind of like a big eye face. Why did you divorce?
He's getting milk and cigarettes from the seed oil. Sorry, he's getting seed oils for himself and his douche flute. He'll be back any moment.
Wow.
Keep going.
And then we have another from Little Drinky Poo saying seminal John Anderson's song from the 90s, Seminole Wind.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with?
Well,
the
the Seminole tribe is pretty much, they're like the last group of wild Indians in North America.
Mm-hmm.
They are a group of Indians, which they like to be called Indians. So suck it, SJW types, right? You're not doing them a favor by calling them Native Americans, right? Anyone's a Native American, anyone born in America, but Native Americans, Seminole Indians, they're some of the last wild Indians, meaning they lived barefoot out in the woods, out in the swamp, right up until the 60s.
Earthing, baby.
Right up until the 60s. Yeah, they grounded. You look at their toes, man. Their toes were flat and straight, beautiful. But because they're
beautiful feet.
always barefoot. Well, these guys grew very tall. They also lived over 100 in the wild with the U.S. government chasing them around. The Seminole Wars, it's the largest, most expensive Indian conflict we've ever had in America, but we've never seen a movie on the Seminoles. Why? There's a whole rabbit hole with that, but the Seminoles are, they're kind of the ones who have the reservations all over Florida. There's not really any other tribe here. There's the Miccosukee, which is
down here in Miami.
but they're for for all intents and purposes, they're Seminoles as well, and they also grew very tall and they lived very long. So they are an object of interest for me a lot. I have some Seminole followers, subscribers, supporters, and they love the truth, a lot of them too, and they lived very old, which ties into the whole Fountain of Youth thing. Is not many people are aware. People really don't know. They think this is, mystery or Disney Fountain of Youth, nonsense. There's, for those who don't know, Florida is not just swamps and beaches. That's what the Board of Tourism would like you to think it is, right? What Florida really has to offer, it's the highest concentration of freshwater springs in the world. Water is the most valuable resource in the world, believe it or not.
Aquifers.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of hot springs? I love hot springs.
Not too many. There's a couple. There's warm springs, not too many hot springs. It's mostly fresh water. That's what the Spanish were looking for when they came here. They knew there was gold. They knew there wasn't gold within a month of being here. It was the water that kept them here. The water was healing. Florida water used to be sold around the world for, essentially like in today's market, it would be hundreds of dollars for a bottle of water from Florida. They believed it cured every disease there was. They believed it was miraculous. And that was right down to the Indians themselves. They believed this. So if you've ever seen Wakulla Springs, it's the largest, highest magnitude freshwater spring in the world. Luke asked, how can we take advantage of this information? Well, they're all public. They're very cheap to get into. Some are free. Most are free. Florida takes a great care of all these springs. They don't really tell people they're there because they don't want them there. It's the jewels of America, truly.
Can you reveal to the audience?
Wakulla Springs is the biggest, largest, deepest, highest magnitude spring in the world. When God says he opened the fountains of the deep, it's hard to think of anything other than this. And that's right smack dab in the panhandle of Florida. But back to Rockefeller and the old age and Wakulla, Wakulla. Well, John D. Rockefeller only drank spring water for the last. He turned 66, and then he had a epiphany. He reinvented himself, started drinking this Florida spring water, started going to dances. He loosened up on his religion a little bit, right? But what he was chasing was what these Indians had. The Timucua, like I was saying, it said that they lived up to 300 years old. That sounds ridiculous, right? Right, ridiculous. What if I told you there's animals in Florida who live in the spring water? For example, there's what they call it, a blind, it's a Florida crawfish, Florida crawfish. Crawfish lives between 5 years, 20 years, at the max. There's Florida crawfish that are living for over 100 years. Oh. There's salamanders, underwater, lizards, who live for 100 years. They're surface counterparts where they live around just very nearby, but outside of the springs, not in the water. They live for like five years.
How much
at most.
land are we talking about that these springs are encompassing?
That's most of Central Florida up to northern Florida, Panhandle of Florida.
So are there communities there that people have caught on to this? Or who've
Sure, yeah. There was a holistic movement, right before the stock market collapse of 1929, which, by the way, was triggered. Every great financial collapse in American history was triggered in some way by the housing market in Florida. 1926, we had some bad hurricanes. They were in the process of revamping Florida. And part of that move down to Florida craze in the 1920s that Rockefeller largely created and, made famous was the water and hydrotherapy. So, a Kellogg cereal, you ever see that guy? Mm-hmm. Kellogg cereal. Well, those brothers, Harvey and David, or a couple of those guys, they were radical health practitioners, and they opened a place over here in Miami. There's a Miami, it used to be called the Sanitarium.
The same guy that introduced circumcision to American people. That guy
Yeah,
was
he's one of
radically
them.
about health.
No, he's
Seriously?
one of them, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
for himself, I think he also introduced cereal as a form of birth control as well.
Well, it
Bland,
was to
boring
suppress
food.
it was to suppress the urge for masturbation.
Yes.
But there's two brothers.
That's Kellogg's, by the way, the
Yeah.
cereal that's in your grocery store right now that I refuse to touch. That's filled with a whole bunch of absolutely
That's why we
horrible
gotta-
seed oils and glycinate.
That's why we got to
and
make
all these
America
other
healthy again.
Yep.
horrible stuff
They
as well. But the
actu-
Kellogg family is fascinated with the
Yeah.
stuff that they were working on because essentially they were trying to attack Americans through this kind of new cereal that they used on mentally ill people.
Right. Well, we've got to be careful here. Everything you're saying is pretty much right. But there was two brothers, so it's we got to distinguish. One of them was way more into the holistic health. He would have been in on this conversation and been on our side. The other one, not so much. He wanted to sell out. He took the cereal idea and made it a deep state, tactic used for every children on.
He
ever
used to
since.
recommend babies be pinned down so that they couldn't touch their genitals. Like that was the recommendation
Yeah.
to new mothers, that you would pin your baby's like sleeves to the mattress.
Yeah, you ever
That's
heard
sick.
of the Urantia book? There's
Yes,
this.
it's a like a secret society that
Yep.
believes in a one world government.
Well, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
They talk about racial origins. They talk about a lot of things. But for some people, it's like their Bible. It really
Yeah,
is.
it is.
And believe it or not, the Kellogg's were behind that.
Really?
The Kellogg's, they had a reader or a clairvoyant who was producing most of that stuff. It was the Kellogg family, largely, who got involved and was, boosting this. Some people think it was one of the Kellogg brothers was the clairvoyant, bringing in all this, hermetic information down from. He was scrying, where he was asleep. He was similar to Edgar Casey. He would receive messages and he could automatic write from a sleeping state. And that's how this book. You can't make the stuff in this book up. But so Kellogg. So many rabbit holes with that stuff. Special K, everything K. If you guys ever wonder where the K branding comes from in America?
Kmart.
All the Kmart, Kellogg, Special K,
Ketamine.
Crystals, the fast food spelled with a K. There's so many more. I'd have to
Circle
think.
K.
Circle K. Thank you. It's on and on and on and on. Believe it or not, this actually goes back to the KKK. Right? That sounds ridiculous, right? I don't. Can we say that on YouTube?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Well, the KKK, there was a society behind the Confederacy. Not many people know this. They were called the Knights of the Golden Circle. Knights of the Golden Circle, okay? What if I told you that the same people who were into the KKK, and I actually lean more towards the Confederate side if I had to, go to bat for who I thought, was in the right. Not over slavery, of course, that goes without saying. But it was actually this one secret society that was largely pushing slavery for the South. They had largely vowed to give up their slaves by a certain date. That date wasn't reached before the Civil War started. But basically, the Knights of the Golden Circle was the secret service. They were like the KGB. They were like the Gestapo for the Confederacy. They were the KGC. They sprung out of another secret society known as the Order of the Lone Star, right? So you ever see Texas with the Lone Star? I wonder where that came from. That was a group of Floridians who were part of the Order of the Lone Star, who went over and rescued Americans or English speakers in Texas. That largely kicked off, the Alamo too, as Floridians under the Lone Star flag. They're the people who founded Texas. So thank you, Florida. Texas, you're welcome. And that's where we get the Lone Star symbolism. Well, they also splintered off and became the Knights of the Golden Circle, the KGC. Now, hang on. And if this isn't, your guys' thing, just let me know. We'll get out of it. But KGC, you want to talk about eating healthy and, making good choices with nutrition? That's what I always say. The greatest conspiracy theory there's ever been is nutrition. It's health, what you put in your body. You can only, the vampire, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they don't just knock your door down and sit at the couch next to you. You open your mouth and you put them right in your mouth. That's how we welcome this negativity into our lives. So it's good to know how much, black magic, evil's in the food. Well, I'll try and sum this up quick. KFC, Colonel Sanders, right? Crazy guy. When he was alive, he was the second most famous person in the world. The most famous celebrity there'd ever been. Second to Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some good marketing.
Now, he was born on 999 or something like that. And you flip that, it's 666, but it doesn't matter. He had this whole white duke persona, right? White. Whole, just like John D. Rockefeller, he reinvented himself at the age of 66. Made a whole new career path. KFC. KGC. KFC. Is there anything to that? I don't know. The KKK, they used the number 311 for their insignia and, like a little dog whistle code amongst themselves, just like your Freemasons have your 33. And this was another coded version of that. It's 3 times 11, so 33, 311. Okay. And the KKK, well, K is the 11th letter. So you have another K, 3 times 11, 11, 11, 11.
Was the band 311 involved?
A little bit. A little bit. You'll see this. 311 would go on, right? This 311 thing. Why does KFC only have 11 herbs and spices? We know there's about 30 ingredients in that stuff, but they always throw out this number, 11 herbs and spices. KFC. Now, hopefully this will knock your socks off. When KFC represents themselves around the world, they do it as KGC because they choose to put forward their grilled chicken, right? This is like conspiracy theory 101, like staring at the fast food menu and, schizoing out. But basically, they brand themselves as KGC. Now, hang on. Is there any legacy? Is there anything connecting the KKK to KFC? You betcha. There's a ton of rumors that he was a big fan of the KKK. Now, what would you do if you were a slave owner? The war's over. You're losing all your slaves. You still want to be rich. You still want to have control. Well, you can't, use whips and chains. What do? You go to the food. You go to the goyslop, as they call it. The junk, right? This is how they've used chains. KFC is the KGC. Crystals, founded by a woman using a crystal ball. Yeah, look this up. All the fast food organizations have very esoteric origins. Crystals was a White Castle, by the way, White Castle. Knights of the Golden Circle. Masons use lodges. The Knights of the Golden Circle use castles. There's your White Castle, okay? This is pretty ridiculous, out there stuff. But
Golden arches.
the Golden Arches, thank you. Golden Corrals, the Golden Circle. These are all, it's the same. I kid you not. You've ever see this movie? You go to the movies, there's this Kingsman franchise. The second installment of the Kingsman franchise was called The Golden Circle. What was it about? And by the way, the Knights of the Golden Circle are the people who assassinated President Lincoln. They're the ones behind the assassination. John Wilkes Booth and about all of his co-conspirators were members of the Knights of the Golden Circle. Another big part of this was buried treasure. The Confederates had a lot of money. They lost the war a lot earlier than they thought they would. Where'd all the money go? Officially, it was
Fast food.
Largely, yeah. You wouldn't believe it, but it's true. The same establishment behind the darker part of the Confederacy, not all bad, not all dark, but the establishment behind it, the swamp behind the Confederacy, they became the fast food industry.
That's why we got to make America healthy again. How are they utilizing food back then? Do you have any specifics on how they were controlling people through the food?
Well, the first ever KKK movie prominently featured fried chicken. So you notice fried chicken is one of the nastiest foods there is in terms of your, disrupting your.
Oh my God, I love
your
fried chicken.
Endocrine system.
and fried in beef tallow is amazing.
Yeah. Well,
Probably. I mean,
the seed oil, you guys want to let me run, I'll go wherever.
Please
but,
go.
No, go ahead.
Go
the-
into seed oils, please.
The seed oil psyop is a big psyop people need to overreacting to. This whole, what's this guy's name?
Paul Saladino. There's a lot of people.
Paul Salad Dino. Yeah, I'd be pretty upset if that was my name too. Paul Salad Dino. Meet me in the ring. We'll duke it out. No, just kidding. But he's wrong about everything. He's a deep state agent. This whole seed oil scare is creating more adrenochrome addicts than there's ever been on planet Earth. And excuse me.
No, you're totally fine. Keep. I want to know what
The
you're
audience
saying.
can't hear that.
I want to know about this because I love Paul. I've been religiously following his.
Paul Saladino, he says that mankind never used seed oils until the 40s, 60s, 70s, something like that. That's not true. Something beeping.
Yeah.
Yes. It's 7:30. That's usually when we go to callers from members of
That's
LukeUnfiltered.com.
all
So
right.
we're getting our caller right now.
Sure.
Just ignore
as that
Should we do this before the call or after the call?
But this is going to spur on an interesting conversation. But let's finish off your thought.
Well, sure. The seed oil scare is an artificial psyop. Seed oils, they're largely amazing for you. People don't want to hear that.
Wait,
You've
what?
got
What?
everyone. Yeah.
GMO soybean oil.
No way.
No. Well, you just said soybean oil. I'd like to remind you, soybean is not a seed. Sesame seed is a great seed, healthy, very nutritious. You got flax seed, you've got hemp seed, you've got all these are now off the menu for the idiots.
But what are they using?
But
to
the
fry? What are
flax
they
seed
using
is
to
really
fry?
bad for your testosterone. A lot of studies have found
not
as well.
necessarily.
All right, we're going to continue that conversation. We have B on the line with us, who's a member of LukeUnfiltered.com. B, good to see your face. Thank you so much for calling in. You're live on air. You were at the meetup, I think, recently in Miami as well. So you're live on air. What is your question for everybody?
Did y'all catch that Sam Tripoli, Jerry?
No, we didn't catch Sam Tripoli.
Oh, he was on the JRE the same time as Trump, same exact release date.
Yeah. He was right before Donald Trump. Yep, I remember that.
What's your question?
Well, mostly I'm just wondering about why does Florida seem like it's got like the most extensive canal system in the world?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do you want to handle that?
That's a really good question. This goes into the Atlantis conversation a little bit, but there's things in America that were done by the ancient people, just like Stonehenge and all these places where you look at it and you say, how did they do that? How could they have done that? Right? Not even horses. People say horse and buggy, capable of doing so much. They didn't even have the horse or the wheel in Florida. But it's true. There's canals all over Florida. The most famous would be the Intracoastal Waterway, which traces the east coast of Florida. It actually goes from the northeast of America all the way across to Texas a little bit, but it's most consistent in Florida. We have this Intracoastal Waterway. Then there's canals all over the state. If those canals weren't there, Florida would still be a swamp. It'd still be a couple feet of water. Well, they built those canals, but the Army Corps of Engineers is the one who largely dredged them and made them navigable. But those are ancient canals. Most of the canals in Florida are in the footprint of an ancient canoe highway. Canoe, canal, right? Same root word there. And, they were digging. They were, what would you call it, landscaping, terraforming Florida thousands of years ago. Just like the Stonehenge and all this, some of these canals, there's entire man-made islands. There's a place over on the West Coast called Indian Key. Indian Key is built. They built it up from nothing out of the water. And They terraformed Florida, and this just goes to show that the people who were here were capable of, great engineering feats. Not to mention the mounds in Florida. That could be another explanation.
Wait, but so the canals were not built by the Corps of Army Engineers. It was built before they were here.
That's true. The Intracoastal Waterway was largely here. It was largely intact. You couldn't exactly navigate a boat through it. That's what the Army Corps of Engineer went through. They cleaned it all out. They dredged it so that it was deep enough for boats to go through. But a couple thousand years ago, yeah.
I didn't know. I thought it was like a recent-ish addition.
It's pretty recent, the project, the Intercoastal Waterway project, but it's an ancient waterway. Yeah.
That's wild.
And it was largely freshwater, too. So meaning there was only a handful of inlets in all of Florida 500 years ago. Most of the ones you sail your boat out to go fishing today, those weren't here. Those were created, and since they were created, the Intracoastal, which is this big, long canal that goes around most of Florida, now it's salty. Now it's brackish. Used to be freshwater. But now it meets with the ocean in so many places, it's salty. So we've
messed it up. Good job, guys.
Yeah. Well, God said, go out and subdue the earth and, tend and keep the Garden of Eden. So this is all well within our rights and as a human.
Would have been great, though, to have fresh water everywhere. I mean, think of how amazing that would be versus salt water. But whatever.
A little bit.
That was an amazing answer. I want to go back to seed oils. Do we still have callers?
B, did we answer your question? Do you have anything else to say?
That's pretty much it.
Well, thank you, B. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for calling in. B. As a first-time caller, you also get a free product on wearechange.shop. We have a lot of great products available for you guys that we produce, that we make, that are our own products. B, what would you like from wearechange.shop?
Ashwagandha. I'm out.
Awesome. Yeah, ashwagandha is a great choice, and we will be mailing that out to you. Thank you so much for being a caller. Thank you so much for participating in the call, and hope to see you during the next meetup that we're going to be doing here probably sometime soon. So thank you, B. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate everyone. Let's get back to the seed oil conversation that everyone's waiting for, because, we got to be careful with what we discuss, because I always appreciate the nuance. I understand the power of like olive oil and black seed oil. That is really good for you, but I think, overall, the Crisco engine lubricant that they introduced, that they had overabundance of, that they introduced into our food system, is absolutely horrible for you, and absolutely people should avoid, since it's in every aspect of our food at the grocery store now.
And to follow up with that, before you get started, when you see the pictures from like the 60s, people on the beaches, and you see them now, and you're like, where is the obesity coming from?
Sure.
And they're correlating that with seed oils. Is that not? Do you think that's?
Well, it was a big increase in fast food. Period. I definitely don't think tallow is going to save the world. Tallow is, if you're into things like a lady by the name of Adriana Kroom, Adrena Blank.
Oh.
Tallow is essentially that. It's rendered beef fat. It's the least choice cuts of meat. It's usually the stuff you wouldn't even feed your dog getting rendered. You like knuckle fat, things like that. To think that people are smearing that on their body, it's like something out of science fiction. This dead slop. I mean, and people who use tallow long in life, they always get this rosiness. They always get this, it's agitating to the skin. You'll be way better off with olive oil, coconut oil. If you've got darker skin, coconut oil's going to be better for you. If you've got lighter skin, olive oil's a little bit more suited.
Why is that?
I love coconut oil.
Well, we're all different. We're different pore size and
I mean, I've
ashiness.
never heard about the olive oil for light
Oh,
skin.
yeah.
I use coconut oil a lot, so I'm curious now.
Coconut oil can be a little bit yeasty for white people, to put it plainly. It can
Yeasty?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It can be just more reactions, like it can stay alive on your skin and kind of welcome other
Bacteria?
A little bit.
Okay,
Yeast
I've heard about
being
that.
Yeah, so if you use it in cracks and crevices, it's not as solvent into white skin as olive oil would be. And coconut oil does great for darker skin types. And if both are good, then it's great. But tallow should be the last on the menu, frankly.
Interesting.
And I just want to talk about the industrial lubricant thing. If I'm not mistaken, please check me on this, but canola oil, I think, is 60s or 70s. Industrial Revolution was clearly a couple hundred years before that. Now, in those times, they weren't using sesame seed oil. They're not using soybean oil to lubricate these machines. Paul Saladino is a flat-out liar. okay? To think that these seed oils are helping anybody. I'm not saying they are, okay? But we're calling things that aren't seed oils seed oils. That's the biggest problem. Vegetable oil, not entirely seed oil. Soybean is a bean. It's amazing for you when it's non-GMO'd. The issue is soybean oil is the most GMO'd thing on the planet. That you shouldn't be ingesting. But soy, the soybean is not a seed. So right there, we run into an issue, okay? Canola is not necessarily the seed either, right? I think they call that rapeseed, right? But there's other sources as well. Palm oil. Again, this is one that people complain about all the time. Not necessarily a seed oil, okay? And by the way, holistic vegetarians have known these things were bad for you the whole time, way before Paul Saladino came. So it's really just this this movement that is pushing people towards death and decay and consuming, rotting corpses, which is essentially what tallow is. It's not even the stuff you'd feed to your dog. So that's not a skin product. They're just rendering out all the stuff so it looks like coconut oil by the time it gets to you.
Or shea butter.
Shea butter is very good too. That's for dark skin types.
Gosh,
but
I
if
keep
it
picking
works
the wrong
for you
ones.
too. It could work for you too. It could work.
I mean, coconut oil works great for me. I'm not that.
Yeah.
So you're eating French fries. It doesn't matter where you get them in. You don't think there's a preferred method?
Well, like what they should be fried in.
Yeah, for the most.
So, well, now we're going into culinary tips, but basically, you'd want to use a high smoke point oil. So avocado oil is amazing.
they're not using those in most restaurants, though. So I think
No. And tallow is not good for you either, by the way. All very inflammatory.
I like butter.
What about ghee?
Very likely to get you fat. Ghee is better. It's much better. I'd choose ghee over tallow, but it's got kind of a stronger flavor.
Yeah.
Can we put
consistency.
ghee on our
I
skin?
had a different kind of experience personally myself, because when I just used to eat the modern kind of fast food diet, I was pretty fat. I gained a lot of weight.
Right.
I started to focus on a lot of butter, a lot of tallow, a lot of olive oil. And then I've gotten a lot leaner. So
Yeah.
I use a lot of protein. Bill Tong is one of the guys we work with. But ever since introducing more protein in my diet, I feel a lot better. I feel a lot healthier.
Sure.
Did he fall for the psyop? Because I feel the same way too.
No.
I feel healthier. I feel better. My sleep is better.
Yeah.
I did cut out carbs, and then I felt miserable, and my sleep was horrible, and I wasn't as healthy as I was when I reintroduced carbs. Now I do rice. Now I do vegetables. I do potatoes, and I feel amazing with that diet specifically. But a carnivore diet is not right for me, and I think with these type of larger health discussions, the nuance is what is right for you might not be right for me, vice versa. So I'm always very careful with what I specifically say about people. But I think the food industry is corrupted, and I think they're absolutely poisoning us in so many different horrible ways. And I think seed oils are the main way that they're doing it.
Well, I would agree with you. The seed oils that are an issue, they're a bad issue, and they should be avoided. But tallow's not the solution. Butter, definitely a solution. Butter's great. Butter comes out the good end. Butter comes out the right end, right? If it's good, if it's clean, organic. Unpasteurized, of course, dairy should always be unpasteurized. The thing about, I'd like to touch on the industrial lubricant fallacy. Industrial machinery was running on animal-based lubrication long before it ever switched over to seed oil. And in fact, today, I would go out and say most machinery is still lubricated with
Tallow?
some type of animal-derived lubricant. It's very, very common. Canola oil, again, only gets implemented in like the 60s or the 70s. We had tons of fat people by then. We had tons of cancer by then. Canola oil, you should always avoid, definitely. But it's not necessarily a seed of soybean oils, not necessarily a seed. So when we say seed oil psyop, that's the psyop. The seed oil umbrella term, it's not accurate. You're throwing out oils that are way better for you than tallow, hemp seed, flax seed, sesame seed. I mean, Paul Saladino will look you right in the face and say, humans never ate seed oils until 50 years ago, 100 years ago. He's lying. Sesame seed oil is one of the oldest things in the world to be cooked with.
Japanese use it quite a bit, and they have.
Paul, if you want to come on to
Asians.
debate,
Yeah.
if you want to come on to debate next time, you're welcome to
There's
come
not
join.
a lot of fats in Japan.
Well, Native Americans have been using sunflower seed oil for thousands of years, thousands and thousands of years. okay? They'd never heard of butter. These guys were living to 100 years old in America, Native America. Never heard of the cow, pig, chicken, none of this. They were healthy. They looked great. I've got pictures. We talk about it on my channel. Holistic health is a big thing. Florida has always been a leader in the holistic health movement ever since America started. So that's why it's relevant. And again, nutrition is the biggest conspiracy theory of them all. What goes in your mouth is up to you.
So out of the knowledge that you've kind of garnered, what are your type of practices that you implemented in your life through the research that you have done that that has worked for you?
Well, Florida spring water is a must.
How do we get some Florida?
Yeah, man.
Right.
Buy
spring
Zephyr
water?
Hills.
Well-
It unfortunately comes in
What do you
plastic.
say about that?
Yeah. How do we avoid the plastic though?
Well, you can get yourself a copper bottle, okay? By the way, plastic still comes from the earth. People act like plastic flew in out of space and it's just here to kill us, okay? Plastic is not the number one threat. Believe it or not, if we plan on staying here on Earth, we better get used to plastic and we better adapt to it. But in terms of combating it, you can use a copper bottle. I use a copper bottle. You can fill that up with almost anything. Dirty lake water. You let it sit for 24 hours, especially 24 hours, it'll be clean. They do this in India. They go to the
Copper vessel.
Ganges, okay? It's like sewage water. It's like the Mississippi. It's dark, dirty. You sit that for 24 hours. The copper pulls the toxins into the walls. It isolates. Yes, it's got a very magical effect. It has, what would you call this? The ion effect too.
Restructuring?
Right, yeah, everything. It restructures the water. And royalty used to exclusively cook, eat, drink off of copper, silver, gold. In China, it's still a practice. The rich of the world still eat off of silver. If you're poor, you're probably eating off nickel, and you're getting cancer real quick, right? So silverware. We can combat this generational, heirlooms is a great way to combat this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the Indians don't have the best health practices.
No,
to
they
be quite
don't.
honest with you, I've been in India, and it was a very shocking kind
Yeah.
of discovery of everything that I've saw there. As
Don't-
my friend got typhoid, and I was dealing with some severe
Sure.
problems.
that's the
Yeah.
point. Is it's so dirty there that copper is one of the solutions.
I had bad experiences with copper. I got like a stomach ache, and it made
Yeah.
me want to throw up when
Okay.
I bought a copper container personally myself.
So what were
You're
you
supposed
what-
to clean it the
let me-
first time,
Let me
though.
ask.
Your
what-
camera.
Let me ask you, Luke. What were you putting in it?
Water.
Just water?
Yeah.
Was it distilled?
No,
Was it spring?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. I hope there's something else to blame than the copper, but I'll tell you what can go wrong. If you put distilled water in your copper, it can strip copper out of it because it's just H2O. It's hungry for minerals. It'll
Yeah.
pull the copper right out of the walls.
And that's what a lot of people who filter their water need to understand. If you have totally distilled water, you're actually hurting yourself if you're drinking it and ingesting it, which a lot of people don't know.
Unless you're very overweight, you want to cut weight, distilled water is going to be your best friend. Spring water can keep weight on you. It can help you. You can gain weight just from switching to spring water. But if you have a copper vessel, you don't want to put any lemon in there. You don't want to put anything other than water. You do have to clean it a little bit so it doesn't, oxidize on the inside. But copper is very good. If you don't like copper, there's tin. Tin's a good option. Silver, gold, of course, if you can afford it. That's the best there is. And what we're looking for is 100%. What do they call it? Energetic conductivity.
Vessels. Oh, yeah.
It's conductive. Gold is most conductive.
Piezoelectric.
A little bit. Yeah, that's in there too. If you want to talk about piezoelectric, and to your question, Luke, what's the best things people can do to make use of Florida, even if you don't live here, okay? You can drink Florida orange juice, one of the healthiest foods on planet Earth.
Not from concentrate. You're talking about just
Not from
fresh.
concentrate. Yes. We're talking about fresh from the fruit. Fresh squeezed orange juice.
Does it have to be organic?
I mean, believe it or not, that's one of the cleaner fruits. Orange is one of the clean 15, citrus in general. You don't have to worry so much about it getting sprayed. That's what the rind is for. God foresaw those issues. And most tropical fruit with a thick rind is good. You don't have to worry about the pesticides or anything.
Leaking into it's protected.
It's leafy greens and berries and stuff like that. You really got to worry about pesticides.
We should make a poll, Luke. Like, how many people on We Are Change want We Are Change copper vessels? Yes or no? Do you want us to make that on WeAreChange.shop?
I had a bad experience with that personally, so I don't know about
Gold
that.
coated,
We have a lot of things that we're
gold
trying
coated water bottles.
I want a gold water bottle, please.
for
and
the
thank you.
for the Illuminati. I mean, I think the
distilled?
average We Are Change viewer can't afford gold cups. Personally,
Stop being
myself.
poor, people.
Coated.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh.
Gold
Manifest. So wait, just to clarify, the distilled water, because Luke had said it's bad. Is it good or bad? I was confused.
Distilled
Yeah.
and distilled and going through like a filtration system are two different things.
Right. Yeah. Distilled is closer to what the clouds do. It's where you're changing, not elements, you're changing states of water, right? So you have toxins.
Vapor.
It has
Yeah,
to
you're
vaporize and then
essentially-
collect at the top and then drip back
Exactly.
down. So it's
That's
super
distilled.
clean.
So distilling is close to reverse osmosis. They're not synonymous, but those could kind of be clumped in together as water that's just H2O. Right? Rainwater is very little else than H2O.
What about alkaline water, where they add the mineral?
You should stay away from most of that stuff. If you want to alkalize your water real bad, you should worry about alkalizing your system, not the water itself. So you take you take a glass of water, a little lime juice, a little cucumber water, that'll alkalize you. You don't need to worry about the water's pH. You got to worry about your
What
pH.
about the Florida aquifers? Would you recommend drinking that? And is that like
Yes.
spring water?
I would definitely recommend drinking from the Florida aquifers if you plan on living over 100. That's
living to 100
So
people.
which springs in Florida, like there's Crystal Springs, Zephyr Hills, like what water would you
Yeah.
recommend for
Just
Floridians?
get a well.
well,
Not
get
you,
a
Martha.
well.
Not you.
Just
know-
get a well. Look, I am old. This is called drinking Florida water my whole life.
We
Thank
have a
you.
well here, but they said that the water is too heavy here.
yes.
heavy?
Oh yeah, very mineral packed.
Yeah.
In South Florida too, the springs aren't as accessible, and it's not the choicest water. You want to go up near Orlando, Tampa Bay, or farther north.
Oh, well, I'm drinking that heavy mineralized water. Oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to be working.
But this stuff is proven to make organisms who live very short lives in other places live over 100 years. There's very well, corroborated information, records from the earliest Spaniards and French that the natives of Florida lived to about 300 years old. They said there was one guy who was 350 years old.
Oh, my God.
I've never heard about this.
Sounds ridiculous,
the
right?
Nephilim, right?
Well, hang on. America's oldest person ever, who they've labeled him a liar. I'll tell the whole story. This guy's name was Charlie Smith. He was a slave. He was caught in Africa and brought to America. He worked as a slave for, decades. Then he was freed. Well, he lived to 137. They deny that. They, the ominous they like to criticize that. Why? He was receiving Social Security checks reflecting his age, 137, for decades. He was recognized as America's oldest man, the oldest man in the Western Hemisphere. Okay? Charlie Smith. He was a black guy with blue eyes. Very, very unique looking, extraordinary man. Even his biggest opponents, even the people who hate him and hate his story and try and detract and say, it was all fake, he made up his age. His minimum verifiable age was 105 or 108. This guy was 100-year-old men don't need to lie about their age. I'll tell you why they flipped on this guy. But why it's important, he was a Florida orange picker for close to 100 years.
Oh, wow.
Oldest man in America. He ate oranges every day of his life, just about. He was freed. He stayed as an orange picker. Did that for almost 100 years. At 95, he was a active orange picker, climbing up 30-foot ladders, pulling down oranges all day.
What year is this?
He died in like 1977, around there. And I'll tell you why they turned on him and why he's no longer recognized and you can't even really figure out about him if you search on the internet. Charlie Smith, as the oldest man in the world, some people were even saying. There's Chinese people who claim to do 200 and so on and so, but this was verifiable. We had his Social Security records. At 130 or so, they invite him to the Apollo launch. Luke, right? I know you're a big fan of those guys over there.
I'm getting nervous.
Now, they invite him to the Apollo launch. This video is on the internet. I've got a video on it. It's a big one.
We can see him on it?
Yeah. Charlie Smith. Crazy looking guy. Blue eyes, black guy, cowboy hat.
This is Interesting.
It doesn't. We don't have to see the video, but he was invited to the moon landing, not to the moon, but to the launch.
Yes.
As you know, the whole thought was, this is the oldest man on Earth. We're gonna show him the moon landing. They brought a TV crew. They did all this stuff. They brought him out there. The missile launches. Well, guess what? This guy was old. Old people are wise, right? You can compound that. This guy was 137. He looks at that interviewer. They ask him right after. They ask him right after the launch. Right after. They just get done reacting to it. There's this whole panel, just like this almost, news crew. They look at Charlie Smith. He's there on scene with a, reporter on scene. They've got the headquarters back at the station, and they're looking to this reporter. He interviews Charlie Smith. Oh, what do you think of that? Wasn't that amazing? Look at man's achievement. He goes, ain't no man land on no moon. That was fake. I don't believe a bit of it. From that day forward, America's oldest man was America's most disgraced man. They threw his story out the window. They never talked about him again. And now he's branded a liar.
Is there coverage
a
of
fake.
this?
I just looked it up. It says YouTube, Apollo 17 launch interview with 130-year-old Charlie Smith.
Just me.
What?
Yeah.
Send it to me.
Incredible.
We can play it.
And
God bless you for bringing awareness to this. I did not know about this.
he was invited to the Apollo launch. It wasn't the first. I don't think it was the first landing, but I think, it was the last landing. That's another thing. It was the only nighttime launch. They had a delay. I think it was the only delay that they ever had.
In the group chats, Martha?
I don't have it on my iPad, so sorry, I sent it to you
But
on your...
Apollo 17 launch interview, 130-year-old Charlie Smith. That's someone else's video, but I think the Florida State Archives had that too. But crazy guy, and perhaps the original moon landing denier here in Florida. So
Have to have been perfect.
I'm not surprised.
Here is Bruce Hall. He's with Charles Smith. He's a 130-year-old former slave who came to this country 118 years ago. He's here for the launch of Apollo 17. Bruce Hall, come in.
it skips for a second.
We have here among the VIPs
looks amazing.
one very unusual man. He's at least 130 years old. His name is Charles Smith. And do you believe it really happened? You said they would never go to the moon.
No, they ain't going there. I'll tell them that. And nobody don't believe it. I said, no, ain't nobody going to no moon. No.
I
What they
love
gonna
this
stop,
guy.
Up there? What's going to hold that plane up in the air? What is going to hold it up there? The moon ain't going to hold it.
Oh, they've been before.
It's a bunch of money. Oh, of course, I don't blame them for getting it. Just like when the first man killed the president, the first president that was killed, Guitar killed Garfield. There's something they had him. I brought him back. Said, bring it dead or alive.
Yeah.
I got him.
They brought back rocks last time when they made a trip to the moon. Do you believe that?
No. No, ain't nobody been there.
Yeah.
You don't believe they've been to the moon?
No. Ain't nobody been there no moon.
Well, Walter, that's the view of a 130-year-old man. Now back.
Oh my God.
Well,
So-
Bruce,
Or here, they comment on it and they say it's quite
the
common.
fellow who doesn't believe that man has gone to the moon. It's not as ridiculous a thought as you might think, or any of us might think. Seems a little bit odd now, but I've talked to a lot of people around the world,
Yeah.
and some rather intelligent ones who somehow or other just cannot accept the fact and believe that
Yeah.
man really hasn't done it. That somehow or other
Cue the Sigma
I've,
TikTok
found
music.
many-
What's
right
interesting
there.
is-
I don't believe they went to the moon, personally. There's no way.
What's
Not-
interesting before you get into that is I just Googled the oldest person ever lived. It says 122. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
confused. Why
I
are they
didn't know-
suppressing this?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what I had read before. I'm like, what?
Well,
wow.
they bring it into question. They say, "Oh, he had a marriage document that doesn't match up, doesn't add up. He must have been lying." But they were giving him Social Security, which I guess he started that stereotype too. But he was an early recipient of Social Security, and they were giving him that money reflecting his age. And then when they tried to debunk him, they proved he was at least 105. He could not have been younger than 105. But he said he was 130. He made it to 137. And you never hear about him because of this. It was politicized, it was buried, and he loved Florida oranges too, so grab you a couple. I guess they're good for the truth mechanism too, the third eye, maybe seeing through the nonsense.
Decalcifying the pineal gland.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like getting like actual like orange juice from actual oranges here. There's something about it. Recently, I've started to, and I'm like, because people are like, don't drink the orange juice. It has much sugar as Coca-Cola.
That's horseshit.
And I'm like, I prefer natural products that grow from the ground over, of course, the high fructose corn syrup, heavily acidic Coca-Cola.
Of course. Well, here you go. You brought up some good points, Luke. Coca-Cola was partially originally bottled in Florida with Florida spring water. Used to be a lot better, wasn't it?
Wow.
With the cocaine.
Yes, it had that cocaine in it, but it was largely bottled with Florida spring water. But Luke, you bring up another great point. There's certain facts about the human body that can't be ignored. You'd have to be ignorant or stupid or
Combination of both.
yes, or have malice in your heart to ignore these. And one of them that Luke's highlighting here is sugar and carbs. We, as a people, cannot chase sugar and carbs out of our diet. If we want healthy children, we need lots of sugar, lots of carbs from healthy sources, from organic fruit. Let me explain.
Yep.
We are not a carnivore species. Vegetarian or not, doesn't matter what you are, but we need to look at human breast milk. Human breast milk, breast milk tells you what a species should be eating. Human breast milk is largely sugar, carb based. Animals who are designed to eat flesh are fat and protein based. We are fruit eaters, as the Bible tells us.
Do you know the closest thing to breast milk?
Well, orange juice is up there. Coconut water's up there.
No. Other milk from another animal.
Goat.
Camel. Camel milk is the closest to human breast milk. We have some raw camel milk here.
That's good.
Surprisingly,
We should break it out and do shots.
I literally
Luke.
had a fascinating conversation last night about this,
Yeah.
and I was with a lady. She was like, "No, sugar's great. You got to eat all the sugar.
Yeah.
As long as it's kind
Good-
of natural.
good for the
sugar
brain.
as well, and it's good for the brain as well." And again, do what is right for you on an individual one-on-one basis. Everybody is different. Everyone has different needs and demands. And for me personally, testing out a bunch of stuff, testing out a bunch of diets, seeing how I feel, calculating my sleep, calculating my overall health, HRV, I think lets you kind of decide what is right for you. But intuitively, there's been something recently that being here in Florida, I'm like, I want fresh squeezed orange juice.
Yeah.
That's really been I've been buying orange juice and just I don't even put it in the cup. Steph gets mad at me.
Yeah.
I'm just like I want it.
Do you have like an orange squeezer thing
Yeah,
here?
we have it.
Oh, okay.
So we'll get that as well.
It's a perfect and complete food, meaning it balances the sugar content of the body. It balances the salt content.
I'm
of
sold
the body.
on orange juice. I love orange juice, and I had stopped drinking it because it's supposed to be terrible
No.
for you. So
Well,
now-
well, what is
Explain.
what
I'm
is
going
supposed to?
terrible
What is
about it.
I
what
don't
is
know.
supposed to matter? It's you. You're at the reins.
I
You're-
love
Yeah,
orange
this
juice. I'm
this
so
goes-
happy that this is like a conversation
Wait,
we're having.
I know, and I want to talk about honey because
Yeah,
people
great.
always tell me, "Honey, oh my god, it has too much sugar." But I'm like, "Are you joking? Honey is the only thing that can last in a
incredible.
jar
Yeah.
for years and years and years and never
it's
get
so
mold."
good.
It's the last thing.
It's super healing.
It's the last thing Jesus ever ate was honey.
Honey.
We're told that when Jesus, came back from the dead, or so it's written, that they dropped a piece of broiled fish onto his tongue. Well, it was honey and broiled fish. Well, it just so happens that if you go back to the original Greek, it's honeycomb. It's not fish. It's honeycomb. And that goes back to the word ichthys, which means flower of life. The Greeks had many words for fish. Ichthys is just one of them, and it happens to be the most symbolic. So when you see Christians with the fish on the back of their car, that's the ichthys. So Jesus had that dropped on his tongue. When you look at that, it's the seed of life. It's the flower of life. It's a sacred geometry symbol. It's not talking about fish. It's the word honey and honeycomb, because the honeycomb is also a flower of life. Mm-hmm. And you can see this, real biblical scholars know this.
What's the bee thing that I had this morning, Steph?
Bee pollen.
Yeah, I had bee pollen today.
That's
I like that personally myself.
That's amazing.
We're going a little bit long. but this is a fascinating conversation. We still have some super chats we have to read, but we usually end our conversations by asking you a question from our previous guest.
Sure.
And we're going to ask you to think of a question for tomorrow's guest. So, Steph, take it away.
Oh
Read
my
the super chats
God.
and then ask the question.
I can't
please.
believe are we on Rumble?
No.
Oh, then why are we doing a question?
Do the question. Read the super chats and do the question, please.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what's the question?
The question is...
Read it in a family-friendly way.
Okay, it's...
Wait, do the super chats
how
first.
am I supposed to do that in a family-friendly way?
Let it rip.
Send it to me right now, and then I'll do it. Read the super chats.
All right. So if we're going to do the super chats, we have one from the Furious Cinnabon saying, I'm convinced going on 100% human breast milk diet.
Sounds good. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Ask Tim Walls how that's going.
Oh, gosh. There's
What?
some news regarding him.
Is he in a breast milk diet?
Well, there's some rabbit holes there. We'll just say that.
Is there really?
What?
I'd love to know
Really? Oh
about
my
that.
God! And why didn't you lead with
You
this?
can't
Like,
tease
hello.
that. I want to know now.
I'm not going to lead with it. You guys will have to stumble into that yourselves. He was-
Please, just like give us
There's
like
a lot of breaking
Give us,
news
give
about
us
him.
something to get.
I know. Give us the like,
Give us like 30-second rundown.
He was apparently into some orgiastic activity, and there's some evidence for it.
But what does the breast milk have to do?
I mean,
There were some weird fetishes getting thrown around.
Clearly.
Just go look it up. I'm not the authority on this topic or anything.
I have to say,
but-
breast milk is very, very, very sweet.
I really want to try some.
Oh God.
Of course.
Well,
you do,
Of course,
Robbie.
yeah. I mean, have a child.
I
It
would love
becomes
to have a
really
child.
easy to try breast milk. Then.
Steph, send me the question and read the super chats, please.
The next super chat is from Waika saying, in talking of Florida mystics and those of positive flavor who was very into long life, one cannot forget Hilton Hotema.
Whoa.
His work is
Whoa.
great and stands as a test of all time.
That's crazy.
Who's that?
He's a Florida legend who went by a different name. His name was George Clement. He was one of America's early, great holistic health practitioners. He lived to about 95. This is going to blow your mind. He lived about the last half of his life, or maybe 30 years of his life, but the last chunk of his life, nothing but orange juice. He was a liquidarian. He believed in breatharianism, but people
Robbie
here...
knows.
People
I
here,
met a breatharian, yeah.
Yeah, I know a breatharian.
You know one, okay.
Well, they're liquidarians. You can't be too hard on them.
That's
And-
what she admitted to me later. She's like, I've been drinking green juice.
Yeah.
But she claims her friend has just like does sun gazing and
Yeah.
hasn't eaten or drinking.
Yeah, I was in that whole community for a little. I was part of like the radical.
But they need we need our orange juice, man.
Yes, well, orange juice is very close to human breast milk. It's a ultimate food. It's an ultimate nutrient. Like I said, it balances almost everything in the body. It's the best food on planet Earth to hit your stomach first thing in the morning. Hilton Hotema was a prolific writer, mystic, great thinker, leaning Christian mystic. He was an astrologer too. He wrote a book called Long Life in Florida. And he was friends with like the whole Kellogg operation too. There's Dr. Morse over in Southwest Florida too, who's like keeping his legacy alive. He was a raw fruit healing practitioner. Like little to no food, you can cure every disease there is.
People are asking in the chat room, how much are you invested into the orange industry and to the Florida spring water industry?
Right. Now, Florida owes me a lot of money by how much I've brought to the state. And but then again, people don't like that I share about the Florida Springs. Some people are very gatekeeping about those. People love them for themselves, and they don't want Latin music blasting at full volume, at Florida's beautiful springs. I don't blame them. But the whole thing about I forget, what was the
Yeah,
question?
that's too
Sorry.
much. I couldn't imagine being at the Springs and having to deal with like a South Beach party or something.
Yeah.
Read the super chat stuff.
Sure. We have another one from Bald Head Dim Fool saying, great guest today. Do you recommend any podcast that talks about all the kind of stuff you are talking about? There's a lot of new listeners like myself who don't know too much about the history of Titanic and the Federal Reserve, etc.
Sure. Old World Florida. That's top tier YouTube content right there. That's my channel. Juan on Juan is a good Florida channel too. He'd be a good guest for here. Not.
Let's set him up.
Just whatever. He'd be a good guest. He's in Florida. he talks about the mysticism, occult. His whole thing is like homuncology, which is like this old alchemical creating humans out of nothing, out of thin air. And it's remarkably relevant to like the whole GMO industry and fast food and all this stuff too. You've heard the theories about human DNA being in fast food and stuff.
I have, or just meat in general. Pork is the big one.
Pork, people think pork as an animal was, this is a little bit out there too, but the Egyptians believed in, ancient Egyptians believed in hybrid animals. And the pork came out of somewhere, mysteriously. You know, the bald, human-looking pig that's very compatible with our organs, you know. There's a lot of people who think pigs are part human, but there's some crazy science project gone wrong in ancient times. We know that pork makes people, gives them a state of, I don't know what you call it, rabidity, like rabies. So you'll see that whenever law enforcement has a chance to partner with any food, they always try and partner with pork, however they can.
You're blowing my mind. As a Cuban, pork is our like staple.
Well,
we eat pork a lot.
There's a reason the Bible warns against it. There's a reason anybody with a very high IQ has disdain for, pork flesh. That's been a common theme.
That's why I love it so much.
Right, me too.
It's very bestial, and it lowers the human nature.
I will say the meat, when you handle it raw, looks very humanoid-like.
Yep.
It's very creepy.
Martha killed a bunch of people before in her past life as Griselda.
Well, you'll see the pig.
Thanks, Luke.
Pigs don't have a cellular waste system like humans. We have lymph. We have an internal sewage system. Pigs don't really have that. They just kind of pump it around their body and get rid of it as fast as they can. They can eat anything. They can eat other pig. They're known to be somewhat cannibalistic. They're opportunistic feeders. They'll eat anything. They're disgusting. I used hunted pigs growing up. Now I'm a vegetarian, but I killed enough for everyone here at the table, so you guys are good. And the pig eats its own shit, rolls in its own shit. It is the most parasite-ridden animal
I'm done with
in the
pork.
animal kingdom.
Shoot.
The mammal, at least. And the biblical restrictions on pork were not because, our culture doesn't like this restaurant and they eat at this restaurant. No, it was a spiritual necessity. You cannot ascend on a pork diet. You cannot if you're into this chakra stuff, forget about it if you're eating pork. I hate to say that.
How long do you have to
People in the
quit
chat
pork?
room are like, but why does it taste so good?
I know, seriously.
Well,
Especially
adrenochrome is very habit-forming. So...
Again, my people, Cubans, we eat pork.
I mean, I love pepperoni pizza.
No, people like onion, garlic, salt. These things are the flavors that they're really seeking. Anything other than that is probably our parasites controlling our brain for us, right? We know that they do this with other animals. You ever look at a frat house? That's nothing more than a parasite hive.
More papaya seeds.
Low cooked barbecue, women getting passed around left and right. Parasites largely govern our day-to-day activities, especially if we're that's very low level. Most people have candida, and most people have parasites. But these worms, these fungal, infections that most people get from eating flesh and especially pork. It just so happens most of the medications that Donald Trump was recommending as an anti-COVID, this and that. Sorry if that's a no word, anti-C word. That. Most of them were anti-parasitic.
Mm-hmm.
For
like the one that Rogan took.
Yeah, and it's pretty much just to...
And there's a lot of correlation with that, with beating things like cancer.
Totally.
Steph, I don't know why you didn't want to ask this question. This is a
because I'm a little simple. So I'll explain it. So this is what's going on. I am not sure what streaming platform we're on. This conversation's been so amazing that I'm like, wait, are we allowed to have free speech?
The question is fine.
Well, so the word in the middle, we're not supposed to say the violence.
Yeah, but you could just say who took out.
Oh, the pew pew.
Yeah, I just said make it family friendly.
I don't know. I couldn't think about it. I was just like, whoa, there's only 3 words. How am I supposed to change this?
Yeah, just change.
Luke,
You could
take
even,
it away.
You could even say
Take
that.
it away.
You could even say that word. It's fine. But over
I'm
overabundance of
curious
caution.
as to what this question
this
is
is a
now.
I can see it.
It's 3 words.
I can see it.
It's 3 words.
It's really funny.
Oh, let me in.
This is a question.
Take it away.
That we're not going to tell anyone until you subscribe to LukeUnfiltered.com. No, I'm joking. The question is from our previous guest, Mike Benz, who took out JFK.
That's a good one. I'd have to throw a little astrology in there too.
Go ahead.
It's a good one. Yeah. So, I can't say I know who, right? But the astrology points to a couple areas. And just to start off, a crash course in astrology. You don't believe in it? Sucks to suck. Your wife's boyfriend probably does. Okay. Astrology is next gen. Astrology is the truth. It's the basis of every world religion there's ever been. How do the Christians decide their holidays? Easter. Astrology. Thank you very much. So, astrology matters, right? JFK's assassination was on the cusp of 2 signs of the zodiac. This is very, very important. If we like analyzing things like September 11th and coming away with a deeper understanding, the esoteric cause behind it, what were the harmonic resonances, like, oh, this symbolism was here, it happened on this date, we reduced this number, right? If everyone's into that stuff, astrology is the real, mega factor. Why do evil people do what they do on certain days? Astrology. It's the only way you can get in the mind of these people. And you can use it for good. Psalms 19, it's every Christian should know their astrology.
Are you into gematria as well?
Of course, yeah. You should know your signs and your seasons. That's in Genesis, the book of Genesis. God created the signs of the zodiac, not man. But blah, blah, blah. JFK was assassinated in between the cusp of Scorpio and Sagittarius. I'll tell you why that's significant. Scorpio is where we get the word assassin. Scorpio rules that act, and it rules that part of the body. Assassins. It rules drug use, too. People talk about Hashishians, the legacy of assassination, the history of it goes back to the assassins. Well, that's where we get the word hash, too. But the assassins, assassination, ass, nation, Scorpio rules that part of the body, and it rules birth, nation, natal, nativity, to be born. So you've got Scorpio, which is about October 21st to November 21st, roughly, right? Give or take a day. Then you've got Sagittarius, which is November 23rd or 21st, 22nd really, to December 22nd. November, so 21st to 21st is when most of the zodiac signs switch. JFK was assassinated by a marksman on November 22nd. So not only do we have an angel number, 1122, 1122, November 22nd, you've also got it on the cusp between the sign that rules sharpshooting, Sagittarius, the archer, the sniper. The most successful sniper of all time, the man who's killed the most people, his name's Simo Häyhä. He had the Finnish White Death in World War II. Leading up to World War II, he killed about 500 people with no scope. He was a Sagittarius.
You see the Russian dude in the Olympics with the
sharpshooter, yeah. Well,
Turkish.
Yeah. So this Finnish guy was the most successful sniper of all time. He was a Sagittarius. So that's just one link to this. Then you have Scorpio, which rules assassinations. For example, Brutus, Judas, who's this backstabber in the Bible in the life of Julius Caesar, JC. Well, that would be the sign of Scorpio, or at least the planet Pluto, which rules the sign of Scorpio. And this rules backstabbing. Scorpio, the scorpion, is the only animal which can stab you in the back. Look you in the eye and stab you in the back at the same time. So there's a lot to this, but just the fact that they chose that date for the assassination, there's an astrological reason why. I hope it's clear. Sharpshooting, ruled by Sagittarius. Assassinations, ruled by Scorpio. So do the sharpshooting assassination on the cusp between those two signs. That's when they did it. November 22nd, 1963. Right? Well, then you look at JFK himself. You look at his astrology chart. We have a thing called houses in the natal chart, right? And the 8th house is the house of death, sudden death, to be killed, to be murdered, to be ripped out of this world suddenly. And the 8th house is, if you have planets in the 8th house, it's likely that you might have a popular death. JFK, depending on which chart you use, had either 3 planets or 4 planets in his 8th house. So that might mean nothing to you guys. But for an astrologer, that's like, don't get assassinated. Don't get keep your head down. So he has 4 planets in the 8th house. Competent astrologers have said to me, and again, if you don't believe in astrology, the people who undertook this and orchestrated this, they believed in astrology. They don't care if you do. He had 4 planets in the 8th house. Competent astrologers would tell you that means there was 4 people involved in his death. So that's the only real thing I could offer was there was 4 shooters, 4 people on scene that day. Not just 3, not just 1, 4. Whether that's 4 branches of the military being in on it, whether that's 4 organizations, but there's 4 suspects in his astrology chart. So that's all I can say on that, really.
Now the interesting part. What is your question for tomorrow's guest?
Do we know who tomorrow's guest is?
Colby Covington.
Oh,
but it doesn't matter.
Amazing.
You could ask him.
Colby
whatever.
Covington's going to be here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell him not to sniff my seat too hard, okay? No, just kidding. Just kidding. But Colby Covington, love your stuff, man. My question would be, was Jesus a real person? And if I can tag on something to that, why does it matter?
Good question.
It's an excellent question.
This was a little bit of a different podcast than we did, but I thought it was a pretty interesting one, Connor. We agreed, we disagreed. It was great.
Sure.
If you guys appreciate it, subscribe and click the notification button. It's always great to have your participation in these shows that, of course, are very unique, I think, out there. And thank you so much for providing us your unique perspective. Where can people find out more information about you, and where can they check out more of your stuff?
Well, thanks for being, thank you for having me. I always say thanks for being here because I usually host the show, and at the end, my bad. I said thanks for being here. But thank you for having me. I run the Old World Florida YouTube channel. It's like what I talked about. Forgive me if all I can talk about is Florida. That's kind of my carear, but these guys were very
awesome state.
These guys were very nice for having me and very, very open-minded. And we all live in Florida here, so it matters. But I run the Old World Florida channel. I'm on Twitter, Old World Florida, Old World FL, maybe. But Old World Florida on most platforms. Got a Patreon, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, on Rumble, too. We've got a book. I just published a book. If anyone wants to support, that's the best way to do it.
Is this the book?
Yeah, gave Luke a copy here. That's my brother and I published this book, and our friend Anthony.
I asked if it was the Bible.
It's almost. He made that joke on the way in. It's a compendium of Neoplatonic works. This is not printed out of Florida, but published out of Florida. I've got a bookstore in Palm Beach County, Lake Worth Beach. If you're ever in the area, come on by. If you're into the truth, if you're into conspiracy theories, there's not a single establishment in America that's more welcoming to you than our bookstore over there.
Do you accept Bitcoin?
What's the name of your bookstore?
A little bit. Maybe. We could work something out. But
What's the name of the bookstore?
The Dancing Elephant in Lake Worth Beach. And the book is called Monad. And the introduction's by Ken Wheeler. He's a YouTube legend, Ken Wheeler, genius. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Martha.
You can find me. I mean, after that, Luke, you make me follow up to this. You can find me on Instagram and on X at Bueno for Miami. I'm good for Miami. Whatever. What can I say?
Dude,
Robbie's getting a lot of papaya seeds now.
Papaya seeds. Look, dude, doctor.
Papaya seed diet.
I'm coming to the bookstore. I want everyone to come to the bookstore. I wanted to see if you'd be willing to do like a special tour of these water sites, like where maybe you can collaborate with Luke and me and Martha and
sure.
your own people. I think it would be cool to have a tour. Of
oh my
people that
God,
wanna
yes.
come to
Yeah.
these water sites. If you guys are watching, send a message.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at Robbie Man. That's ROBBIEMANN. I'm doing videos. I want to, you've changed my life. My Twitter. I did interview Andrew Yang, and I asked him if he wanted to make America healthy again. We were going back to the food. It's the Robbie Man.
Cool.
And I don't even know what other social media is not my forte, but I'm getting better, guys. Come find me. It's either the Robbie Man or Robbie Man. Oh, the YouTube, the Robbie Man. Yeah. And I want to do this, man. I want to make America healthy again.
Sure.
I want to learn more from you.
Drink Florida water.
I want to learn why we'll save this for next time. How KFC, I want to know how they started this back in the day, how they were using how they were going to control people through the food. I'm really curious.
Sure, yeah. And seed oils do play into that. The really bad ones were kicked off by bad guys. I'll go to bat for that too. I just want the nuance to be represented, you know.
That
Seed
made
oil,
a lot of sense, though.
The word seed oil is not your enemy.
I want to see you debate Paul Saladino. I do. He does
an
promote
idiot.
honey and fruit and organic fruit, though. You
No,
do agree with him on certain things.
listen. I've been eating what I've been eating since I was 18. Haven't changed it. Paul Saladino, he's like a fish out of water. This guy's flipping and flopping. He's all over the place. 5 years ago, he wrote a book on the carnivore diet. He's not a carnivore anymore. He recommends against it. He today, you know, in the last few months, he now implements fresh squeezed orange juice as Mr. Carnivore himself. Well, I got, you know, newsflash, Mr. Paul Salad Dino. You stand for nothing. You talk about a lot, and this doctor will whoop you. So,
well, hopefully you guys can do a debate one day. I would love to see that.
Well, I think he's got if he can pull his head out of Liver King's ass, maybe he'll make some time.
Amazing conversation, amazing discussion today. This was so much fun. I loved all the different aspects of it. This is Steph, WRC on X, pushing the buttons.
Drink your orange juice. See you later on thebestpoliticalshow.com. We return tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern with Colby Covington. So stay tuned for that and a lot more, all here on youtube.com/wearechange.
So wait,
mics are still hot. Mics are hot.
Okay, that's cool. But wait, is it? That's fine. I love you. 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 Now, you said it's not on Rumble or it's only on YouTube?